time has come for season 3 to get underway. Howdy, folks. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing better than my camera, because my camera is donezo for the evening. We're off to a great start already here for the start of Premier X season 3. Alongside me is a man who needs no introductions, Jacob Aladar Hancox, the superior commentator of FXR, and I'm just the measly old chief lead track analysis expert. Jacob, how are you doing this wonderful evening?
I'm doing very, very well, thank you. That was an oddly sort of extremely complimentary intro for you to give me, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, shouldn't put yourself down too much, though. You do a fair bit of commentary work as well, as a side job, shall we say.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm doing very well, and I'm very much looking forward to getting straight back into Premier X here. It's been, about a month since the end of season 2, so we had that extra week as well where we had an extra bit of break, so I've been looking forward to this one for a while.
Too long, I feel, that month break. And heading into Premier X, the weird thing is, for this race anyway, we do not have, the rainbows are out, we do not have a single driver racing who was here in Premier X back in season 1. Yanni Tripkov will be making his return come round 2, but I think it goes to show, and we talked about this just a little bit actually at the start of season 2, how much the field had improved. And it's improved even more so coming into season 3. And only 5 drivers who are racing have previously raced in Premier X as well.
Yeah, indeed. Only 5 that are racing, and only 6 have raced in Formula X at all. So a really new crop of drivers means a lot of unknowns for us. As anyone who watched the power ranking stream back on, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. If anyone watched that, you'll know that we don't know a huge amount about some of these drivers. So there's a lot that we're going to discover in these first few qualifying sessions here in Australia, which we'll be getting into in a few minutes' time.
Now, with those power rankings, I want to jump right on in to the biggest name, the man who has jumped in and who yourself, Jacob, who and I believe many of our viewers will be expecting to take the title here in season 3. And no, we're not talking about the reigning champion, the defending champion of Vallu. We're talking about Jan Fehler, former F1 esports driver, coming in the Mclaren, and he is looking hot.
Yeah, of course. He's, you said it. Former F1 esports driver. Back in as recently as 2019, he was in F1 esports. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all you need to say, right? That is going to be a certain caliber of driver that we're going to be expect to have. But it's not only that. Jan Fehler has been around the league racing F1 scene for a very, very long time as well. Very much a seasoned veteran. And he's always been up there at the very top sort of level. Always been a very, very quick driver. So someone I'm very much looking forward to seeing in our league. I don't think it's all sort of written off. I don't think it's guaranteed he's going to beat the hot shots, the up and comers in the forms of Vallu, Vexit, maybe even Christian Sendel as well. I think they will be giving him some challenge.
And there we go. We got the Jan Fehler driver card out. The German will be looking to come in with a statement for his debut Formula X race, his debut performance here in the league. But you talked about some of the other drivers that we can really be expecting to see. Of course, our reigning champion Vallu has to be among those names. Teammated or paired in the Red Bull by Vexit, a driver who we saw a couple of times racing in season 2, always seemed to be having some form of dismay or some form of bad luck affecting his race. But without a shadow of a doubt, we know that his pace is there.
Yeah, he was one of few drivers who actually took a pole position, even though he was only a reserve driver and only participated in a couple of races in the last season of Premier X, as you mentioned. So in terms of one-lap raw pace, he's definitely a driver that we can expect to see a lot from. And he'll have only improved since then as well. We just had more and more time on the game for all of these guys. And there you can see the card there for Vexit. English driver as well, driving for Red Bull.
Yeah. We do have a couple of British teams as well making their way through. One driver that I do want to keep an eye on is in one of those 2 all-out British teams in the AlphaTauri, Jay Hamo. And when we did our power rankings, we were a little bit unsure of where we could put him, but I think we're both in agreement that he is one driver we could definitely be seeing finishing fairly high up at the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. He's he's one of those drivers that we don't know a huge amount about, but we are excited to learn more about Jay Hammer. He is going to be someone that I would expect to be in the top 10 from the very beginning. And based on his qualifying time in the evaluation races, he was right up there with the likes of Jan Fehler, Vexit, these guys who are expecting to be at the very sharp end of the competition. So Hamo, I would not count out, that's for sure.
And another one of these drivers that we are somewhat unsure about is we look towards the Renault team of Labrax. We put him down, I think, in P11. He definitely could be showing a lot more pace, and I'm interested to see what he can pull out here for the opening round. We are expecting him to be the lead driver effectively for Renault.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's partially because we're expecting Labrax might be able to actually sneak into that sort of top 10 level and get amongst the likes of J Hammer potentially, but also because we're expecting Ice Looper to be very much a second string driver in that Renault lineup. Having said that, though, Ice Looper does seem to, I think, have the seventh fastest time trial time of this whole field in terms of time trials in Australia. Though, of course, some people do rather more time trials than others, so we can't look too much into that. But he might have a good race here and surprise us out of the blocks as well.
I've just realized as well, Labrax is Dutch, so he's my new Luppy in the season. I remember when Luppy came in back in season 1, I kind of instantly took him out, and I quite enjoyed watching Luppy out on track. So we'll see whether Labrax can fill in the Dutch void, as it were. Now, our producer has also mentioned, because he's Italian, that we also have an all-out Italian team. And sadly, it's not in Ferrari. It is in the Haas. Maranello and Zola pairing up.
Yeah, the American Ferrari is what the Haas is. The gunmetal grey
True, true.
Ferrari, perhaps, or no longer gunmetal grey. The Russian Ferrari, perhaps you might call it now. But yeah, Maranello and Zola. Maranello, a driver we are fairly familiar with from Premier X last season, was a reserve driver for the majority of the season and then got a full-time drive towards the end and had some pretty decent-looking races. I think the first reserve drive in particular, Maranello ended up 5th or 6th in the race, something along those lines. So some good performances and a lot of solid points scored. Didn't necessarily have the cleanest race all of the time, though. That's been a bit of a caveat to him. And Zola, another driver that we don't know a huge amount about. We're not expecting the Haas team to be one of the best. In fact, we're expecting them to be at the lower end in general.
Precisely.
But I wouldn't write off either of these drivers just yet.
And speaking about teams and how well they've done in the past, season 1, we saw it was Iceman in the Williams who was able to take the championship, and with it, the Constructors' Championship, courtesy of the helper from Sipos as well. And in season 2, it was the Alpha Tauri of Vallu who claimed the title, and along with it, the Constructors' Championship. And when we talk about champions, we do have our Division 1 champion racing with us today from Red Bull, Pesso jumping on in. And in his Williams team, he is bringing forth his Division 1, well, let's say Division 1 championship rival in the form of Sandro Van Sant, who finished second in the championship. These two are pairing in Williams. What do we make of their lineup?
Well, I think it's a very, very solid lineup. That much is for sure. I think we ranked Williams about 4th or 5th best in terms of our team power rankings. Peso, in particular, we're expecting him to be up there challenging for podiums, race in, race out. Sandro, maybe a little bit less so, but we're still expecting top 10 finishes semi regularly at the very least from the Belgian, who will be the second driver in the Williams team most weekends. But they are both drivers who are capable of a good result. And on some occasions, I have seen Sandro actually managing to match Peso relatively frequently. So again, the power ranking difference, the 6th to 12th, it looks bigger than I think it is in terms of the actual difference in quality between these two drivers.
Yeah, production smurfing, 2 side-by-side images, wowzers. And just to give a bit of background, as I was very unfortunately Sandro's teammate for an entire season, oof.
Mhm.
Sandro and Pesso are very, very close in pace. We've seen it at so many circuits, and there are certain tracks where Sandro, without a doubt, has the edge over Pesso. You look to certain tracks like Monza, Sandro absolutely can obliterate a lap there. But I think overall, Pesso seems to be that quicker driver, also in terms of consistency as well, always being able to stay out of trouble. And when he does get into trouble, he is able to kind of minimize the disadvantage that it causes him. But without a doubt, we can be expecting them to be finishing one above the other in one race and then switching around in another race. And it'll be quite interesting to keep a tally, a score of their head to head over the season. But when we talk about driver head to heads and we talk about teams that are close, maybe one team that could be even closer than this Williams lineup is the lineup of Red Bull themselves, Vallu and Vexit. We've spoken a little bit about both drivers, but in terms of a team lineup, this is a super strong lineup.
Yeah, it's super strong. It's, I think, still, I would say, the strongest in the league, although McLaren are giving them a run for their money with the addition of Christian Sendel to that lineup. But yeah, Vallu and Vexit, not only are they so strong, they are very, well, we're expecting them to be very evenly matched, as you mentioned. There is a bit of a caveat there, which is to do with whether Vallu is going to be racing with racing line on or off. And if
True.
he's going to be racing with racing line off, how much practice has the Finn been able to do without that racing line? Because we know how unbelievably fast, metronomically quick he can be with that racing line on. And it's a bit of a different challenge with it off. He was still fast in Austin when he did race with it off last season, but he was bested by Dougie Falcons on that occasion. So it's a step below where he would usually be. However, I think nevertheless, we can still expect great things from the Red Bull lineup.
I think one of the biggest things that we saw from Vallu in Austin when he was racing without his racing line was that his quali pace, I don't think, was really too much affected. We always tend to see Vallu invalidating quite a few laps during
Mhm.
qualifying, but come hammer time, he's always able to pull that out through. It really came through in the race where, yes, we do see Vallu picking up time penalties from time to time, and it happened again at Austin, but there were a lot more time penalties. The biggest effect, though, was his consistency, where he wasn't able to be significantly quicker than Dougie Falcons was the driver he was battling with on the day, and usually he'd be able to build out a fairly substantial lead, but that time was unable to do so. So hopefully for Vallu, if he is racing without racing line, he has got to grips with it, and we can see the Finn in his dominant fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. We want him to be at his full level of competition, right? Because if someone is going to steal that championship away, we want Vallu to him fighting tooth and nail for it the whole way through. We don't want them to take it off of a slightly limping Vallu. We want them to take it off Vallu when he's at the height of his powers, and for Vallu to be able to fight back in the championship as well. That's always the dream. And we could well see at least a three-way battle in the Drivers' Championship this season.
And I want to move to another team that could be somewhat close as well, and a team that I personally have high hopes for as a former driver for the team back in Division 1 Alfa Romeo with the Shizou Academy driver of Ace Ritchie, and we have Lars Algera pairing up with him. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Lars Algera because I talked about him a little bit in the power rankings show, the preseason show, and I want to talk about him now in the pre-race show because he's shown a lot of pace over the season, but he's also shown a lot of inconsistency as well. And it's going to be interesting to see where this balance is for him and how high he can finish up the order. Because if he can find the consistency and pair it with the pace that he has shown, namely in Mexico Division 1 last season, this is a driver that will also be fighting towards the upper end of the field.
Yeah, and we have a lot of faith in Lars's ability to bring that sort of level of performance. That's why we rated him 10th in the power rankings, actually above Sandro, who, of course, was right up there in Division 1 last season as well, only being beaten to the title by Peso. But yeah, Lars Algera, again, also another thing about him, he's a driver who hasn't been racing on the F1 games for as long as some of the other ones. So potentially there's more sort of skill to come, and we're going to see a steeper learning curve, but also a sort of steeper improvement curve, perhaps, from the Canadian going through this season. So even if maybe he's not quite where we expect him to be in the first couple of races throughout the season, we're expecting him to probably strengthen relative to the rest of the field.
And we'll see what the Canadian can pull out. Ace Ritchie, we know, is a driver. I think we termed it as being very similar kind of pace to what we saw from Rainbow. We saw Rainbow racing in the Mercedes towards the earlier part of season 2, pardon me. And Rainbow was a very quick driver. If he had stayed to the end of the season, we would have seen him right up there with the likes of Dougie Falcons. So we're really expecting Ace to be towards the upper end. And if we do see teammates working together as we have seen over the course of a previous season, maybe this can give Lars Algera that little boost, that little bit of extra motivation, that extra pace, whether it's from setups or whatnot, to be able to kind of push the Alfa Romeo team forward.
Yeah, indeed. And, it's someone, I mean, Yanni Tripkov is vouching for Ace in the chat right now. Ace fast AF is the message in question. But yeah, I mean, definitely a driver we're expecting some podiums from this season for sure. I think Ace. Not someone we know a huge amount about, but we were able to get a bit of a read. And I think that is why we sort of got the idea that Ace was actually at a very similar level to Rainbow, the Lithuanian driver who drove for Mercedes at the beginning of last season. And Rainbow was always in the podium positions or thereabouts. So I think we're expecting a similar sort of story from Ace this season.
Now, of course, we are on the Friday and we had races already occurring on Thursday, Division 1 and Division 2. And our very own commentator from Division 1, Biggles, has joined us. And Biggles, why don't you just give a rundown of what actually happened in the Division 1 race and what we could potentially expect to see here in Premier X tonight?
Oh, g'day. How is everybody? How are you guys? Well, obviously it was a cracker of a race. It was interesting, per se, during the qualifying session, but overall, the race, at the start we lost obviously our pole position. I didn't really want to give away spoilers, but do we? Should we give
I
away
think we
some
can give away
spoilers? Or?
spoilers. Yeah, let's give away spoilers.
Okay, so yeah, obviously, well, the man that started on pole, obviously didn't have a very good first lap, and therefore jumped all the way back to the field there. So yeah, you kind of put me on the spot on that one, guys. I'm just trying to recap everything on that race.
Mhm.
I mean, it looked like a very hectic race. I was able to tune in for the earlier parts of it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we saw a rather early safety car. Was it virtual safety car?
Lap 6 safety car, I believe, off the top of my head. Yeah, we had a virtual safety car, and then and then really it was just a strategy. Most people just switched over to those hard tires and made those tires go to the end. Really, top 5, I believe that was. They did that
And
as well as some of the other drivers.
one other thing I want to bring up is Australia is, in essence, a street circuit. What was the battling like? How much wheel-to-wheel action can we be expecting?
Oh, well, I think to say obviously the usual suspects with Australia is obviously going down into the last couple of corners. That's turn 15, 16, Prost and Senna. You can get a few overtakes there, and just trying to get it up a second there for a moment. There's sports. We saw a bit of action there through Sports Center and Hellers as well. That should turn 3 and 4.
Mhm.
So, and then obviously, well, you obviously go, as they come out of Clark and they go down Lakeside Drive, as you know, full flat out down that back section. Which I believe this year in the real F1, they're going to be shortening out that Clark corner as well. So they're going to be going even faster, in excess of 200 miles per hour down Lakeside Drive. Obviously, in the game, they're just on the bubble, I think, at 200 miles per hour. And then they go into that turn, the notorious turn at 11. It's at 11 and 12 where you see people really, clip that chicane, clip that grass a little bit, and they're off into the wall. And I've actually renamed it the Foster's Wall from now on. So that's what I like to call it. It's not the Wall of Champions there in Australia, that's for sure.
We could call it Foster's Wall. The Wall of Noobs might be
Wall of
one way
Noobs.
we could put it. I think drivers might accept that until they spin off into the wall. But Biggles, thank you very much for giving us a rundown of the Division 1 race. And for anyone who does want to stay in tune and keep up to date with Division 1 at Thursday evenings right here on Twitch, you can tune in to the Division 1 shows. Biggles, thanks once again for joining us.
Thank you.
Wonderful to hear from Biggles. And we had Australia in round 1 of the season, Jacob. We didn't have it in round 2. So for us, it's our first time. I want to say it's our first ever time as a duo actually casting a race here at Melbourne.
I think you might be right about that, actually. That's an interesting point. We've cast so many races together now that's very surprising to me, and you've caught me off guard with it. But I think you're right. I think this is the very first race we've actually commentated on together here at Melbourne, and it's a track I like, actually. It's a shame we haven't done so yet, because I actually really enjoy Melbourne, particularly on the game. I think in real life, does struggle for action, for entertainment, and it often gets away with it in terms of reputation because it's the first race of the season. Everyone's just so excited for the new season to start. But in the game, I do think actually you do get these overtaking opportunities, particularly into turn 3, but also turn 13 is a much more viable overtaking spot. So I find it actually does deliver some pretty good action most of the time.
Now that I think back to it, I think our first ever cast was in Bahrain, if I'm not mistaken. And then it was weird because we went from there all the way straight to Spa. So when I'm thinking of tracks that we haven't commentated together at, I think Zandvoort we didn't. I think we haven't done so at Spain. And Australia is the last one standing.
Is it really? Yeah, I think you might be right. That all sounds correct to me. I can't think of another track that we haven't done, but I guess I could be misremembering. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, no. Hopefully we can tick all those off at some point in the future.
There we go. We can become the perfect casting duo once we've taken all the tracks off the
Is
calendar.
that really all it takes? Is that you just become the perfect as soon as you've commentated on
Exactly.
every
Yeah.
single circuit? That's it. Okay, grand.
Maybe we have to take off the short tracks as well off the list. But I mean, we're going to get Bahrain short done later on in the season. Ladies and gents, make sure to stay tuned for that later on in the season, as that will surely be a banger. But back to the circuit at hand, and just a reminder to everyone with season 3, we've gone from dynamic conditions in season 1 to real weather conditions in season 2, where we took the real live data of weather forecasts around the track and made the weather conditions. And here in season 3, we're going to be having a full dry season. And personally, Jacob, I quite like this. Yes, I enjoy the wet weather aspect, and I think what you said in the cast that we did not too long ago, the best possible combination you could have: wet qualifying, a dry race. You get to see drivers at their limits in quali, and then you get to see a great race. And the reason for this is because once you get those wet races, the DRS gets disabled, and it becomes a lot harder to see that wheel-to-wheel battling that we all know and love.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually fell victim to that myself in an AOR race many moons ago now, where I was so much in the wet conditions. In the Inters, I was so good in the Inters at one point in time on like F1 2017 relative to like an F5 field in AOR. So I shouldn't get too ahead of myself. But nevertheless, and I was all over the guy, but I couldn't break half a second behind him no matter what I did. And I just came home to a second place finish because he didn't pick up a penalty, and that was all I could hope for. So that was a painful memory. But yeah, that's the sort of thing that you tend to get faced with in these wet conditions. And so to avoid that, we've just gone for all dry. It does also lead to generally a better picture of just driver skill relative to each other. It removes some of the luck aspect of the rain coming down at the right time for you. But of course, sometimes that can be really exciting as well.
Yeah. One thing I will say is, I think Jacob, I don't know if you'd agree, I don't know if our viewers would agree, but there's an age-old saying, which is, the better drivers can really show off their skills when it rains, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would just like to take this opportunity to boast that I have a 100% driver head-to-head record against my teammate from season 2, Sandro. So,
in the wet, you mean?
in the wet,
Yeah.
yes, in the wet. In the dry, it's not quite 100%. But we don't talk about that. Now, I don't know about you, Jacob, but I'm starting to hear sounds of engines, sounds of fans.
Ooh, I'm hearing one particularly loud now. I think maybe we might be transitioning. Here we go, straight into the lobby then for our first qualifying session of the season here in Premier X Season 3. And it's Ice Looper who are going to be following out of the pits. He's not the first driver out of the pits. That's actually a stand-in reserve driver for today in the form of Ben, the Sidemax Motorworks driver, standing in for Yane Tripkov, who can't race this weekend, but will be racing in the future for the Racing Point team alongside KX Ricardo.
And I wonder then if a certain Ice Looper, if he happens to be Portuguese, because we had a bit of a running joke, didn't we, in season 2, because I think it was always a certain race bike who was first out of the pits pretty much every session, and then after that point it kind of became a Rafa Martins, and we saw JB as well. So maybe, I'm not quite sure. Ice Looper, is he Dutch, was it?
He's Belgian, actually. He makes up Team Benelux, which is Renault, which is Labrax, who's Dutch, and Ice Looper, who is Belgian. So you got a nice Benelux lineup. We just need a Luxembourgeois team manager or something like that.
Perfect. And I know we've got Sandro as well as another Belgian to add in. So maybe this season it will be the Belgians heading out on to circuit first. But it does look like Ben is readying himself for a hot lap here at Australia, and our first hot lap of the season.
Yeah, our first hot lap of the season will come from the reserve driver in the Racing Point, and let's see exactly what he's going to do. Down into turn 1, cutting a good amount, not riding too wide on the exit of that first corner there. Maybe he could have taken a bit more road through there, gathered a bit more speed through that first corner. Heavy braking zone here into turn 3. Hint of a lockup on the right-hand side, but that was okay because it didn't hurt the turn in. Late turn in there for 4. That's going to lose you about a tenth, half a tenth, something like that, because you're just a bit later on the throttle on the exit. Flat out turn 5 down to 6 and 7, not cutting as much on the inside as maybe you could once again. So Ben, this is looking like a very solid lap, but it's not really pushing the boundaries thus far.
And down into Clark Curve, and as you mentioned, you don't have to be pushing the boundaries this early on. Just get that banker time in. It is at Q1, and if you are a driver, you know, that expects to be high up the order, which I'm very sure Ben is he's a very quick driver, and I'm expecting to be probably around about that 6th, 7th mark come the end of the race. You just want to get a lap in, not wear out your tires there too much, and just get a feel for the circuit and a feel for the grit in these early stages of the session.
Yeah, worth noting as well that Jeffrey Ritchie there, that is Ace Ritchie, more commonly known as, racing as Jeffrey Ritchie here today for the Alfa Romeos. And now, Ben, coming up towards the line, what's the first lap time going to be? It's going to be a 1:19.579. Not a bad lap time to start off proceedings.
No, and if I remember correctly, as I'm seeing green wall tires on Jeffrey Ritchie, so not quite sure what's going on there. Maybe my eyes are playing tricks on me.
It's partially, so I think some drivers opt to do this because you can save a set of soft tires. You know you're not going to need the intermediates because it's an all-dry race, so you can afford to burn that, and you're just making sure the track improvement comes out around the circuit. You're basically putting intermediate rubber down onto the track so that you can make use of that much better with soft tires later on in the session. Either that or it's a visual glitch, but I'm pretty sure this is actually intermediate tires, and it's just making sure that the track will be faster, but also maintaining as many sets of soft tires as possible to have as many runs throughout the rest of qualifying as possible.
That's a really interesting strategy that I had not heard of before. And now that you say it, it does make sense. Well, hopefully they don't spin and lose a wheel, because if that happens, they are out of the session. Even if they would have advanced it to the next session, they will have to start from the lowest position in the next session, as they have a DNF from that point onwards. But going back to the time, still that 19.5, that is at the fast lap of the session from the Sidemax Motorsport driver. We're expecting, once we get into Q3, that pole time to be around the mid-18s.
Yeah, indeed. Cameron Cooper now getting a bit of a tow, actually, from the teammate Connor up ahead. The two British drivers in the Mercedes working in tandem there, especially after Connor had to abort his lap due to picking up a invalidation. And now here comes Cameron into the final sector, ready to be the 5th driver on the lap time board. And Cameron's probably going to be hoping to prove us a bit wrong in this one, because we did rank him down in 19th in our provisional power rankings, and as he comes up across the line, it's only good enough to beat Maranello thus far, but that's still not a bad lap time to start off proceedings for the Mercedes driver.
A decent lap then for Cameron Cooper, not at the bottom of the field, a 10th clear of Maranello. And I do remember after we put out our power rankings, a lot of drivers saying, oh, Cameron Cooper is a 3 points in a fantasy. And, well, at the moment, he's doing a decent job.
Yeah, no, decent lap time so far. I'm pretty impressed with Ice Looper's lap time as well. Another driver that some people felt we underrated in the provisional power ranking standings. And based on this lap time thus far and how it's holding up to the rest of the field who have come across the line, I'm inclined to agree. Ice Looper might be a bit of a Melbourne specialist, but maybe we're just actually sleeping on him. And he's done a good job thus far in this session, has the Belgian driver. But of course, it's only been one lap for most of these, and a lot of drivers still yet to leave the pit lane as well, playing their cards close to their chest. So we still don't have that clear of an idea what the actual running order will be.
Only 5 drivers have set a laps, and Ricciardo will be looking to be that 6th driver to complete a lap, and we put him in around the midfield, around that 13th place point. We said it'd be very close between the likes of Ricciardo, Maranello, and I think we put the likes of Labrax and Ollie P down there as well. And Ricciardo taking a nice line through turn 13 and into 14. A lot of commitment from the Racing Point driver. His teammate Ben currently sitting in a provisional pole for the Q1 session. Maybe that will motivate Ricciardo to put in his absolute best, and it is looking decent across the line. And only a 20.1, but I say only, still P3. Make that P4 as Riptide jumps up to P2.
Oh, nice lap there from Riptide. That is our 20th ranked driver, moving up into 2nd in the order right now. So that's a good benchmark there from Riptide, actually. Very impressed with that one. Ben going to be feeling pretty good in his first race in Premier X as a reserve driver, of course, but still sitting there at the very top after being the first one to set a lap time. So, yeah, no, nothing to complain about for him right now. Here's Pacer, our reigning Division 1 champion, looking to try and build that into a Premier X Championship charge, heading into the final sector of this lap. Bit of a correction on the exit of 13-14 there. but generally probably going to be okay. Not too much time lost.
And let's see what Peso can pull out. He'll want to be ahead of the likes of Ice Looper and Riptide. And can he demote Ben at one position? A 19.6 slots himself slap bang in the middle of Ben and Riptide.
Wow, it gets even better for Ben then. Connor Eddy just managed to set a lap time. Cameron Cooper also improved. So the two Mercedes getting further up the order into 5th and 6th. That leaves the Hasses at the bottom two. There's Jay Hamo coming across the line for AlphaTauri, moving himself up to the top. So comfortably ahead of pace, so that is interesting.
Now, we've still got the likes of Vallu, Richie, Christian Sendel, Lars Fehler? No, Jan Fehler, Lars Algera, and Vexit all to do laps. And these are the drivers, these are our top of 5 drivers in the power rankings that we're all still waiting to complete a lap. So expect the times to still significantly drop. And those drivers who currently look somewhat safe to really be dropping into the danger zone.
The two McLaren boys that are leaving it latest as Lars almost counter-steering into the wall there on the exit of turn 10. That was a Code Brown moment for the Alfa Romeo driver as we now head into the high-speed chicane. That bollard on the inside of the first part, long gone. Someone's clearly taken that with them a few laps ago. Here comes the Alfa Romeo then into turn 13. Not really making the apex there, just a tiny bit further away from the inside of the corner than you would like to be, but much cleaner through this right-hander. Now heavy braking here. And again, that looked just about okay. Not quite meeting the curb on the inside, but you don't really have to through there. Final corner, smooth application of the throttle. And up towards the line goes the Canadian to put themselves up into only 9th place. But that is a 20.0. It's a very congested field and around that mark at the moment.
Congested. Doesn't quite cover it. Cameron Cooper with that 20.0. And then is 2/10 down to Ollie down in P11. Jeffrey Ritchie, also known as Ace Ritchie, the Shizou Academy driver, jumps up at 2P2, but it is still a Jay Hamo at the top of the standings. But what can Vallu pull out? The reigning FXR champion.
Yeah, now we will see with this Red Bull driver. And he's managed to avoid his first invalidation of the season. So that's a good start for the Finn. And ooh, bit of a moment there under the throttle. It's a tricky traction zone. Very low speed through there, but I don't think it would have cost more than maybe a 1/10 of a second for the Red Bull. And indeed, it hasn't cost too much as Vallu is able to get back on top, but only just 2,000ths clear of Jay Hamo. So that lap time is standing up to scrutiny pretty well from the AlphaTauri as well.
Now, just to give a little bit of background information, the test race that determined the PX standings, Vexit's on a lap, we'll get to that in a second. I believe it was a Vallu, Jan Fehler, Peso, and Jay Hamo, and the 4 of them were separated by a few hundredths of a second. I'm talking about less than 100. There was about 8,000 separating the 4 of them. It was incredible. Vexit has sadly invalidated his lap time. Only 6 minutes remaining in the session, so Vexit cannot afford another invalidation.
And that's the trouble with leaving it so late, like so many of the sort of favored runners tend to do here in Q1. Sometimes comes across a little bit of cockiness. I think it is the most efficient way to go about the session because you don't want to burn too many sets of tires and you want to be out there when the track's at its fastest. But it does leave you open to some issues if you do start to invalidate, and that is exactly what has happened with Vexit here. Someone just hopped up into the order. That was Labrax, I think, only going up into 12th there. Another one to get onto that 120.0 mark. So the Dutch driver probably going to be a touch disappointed with that lap time and might need to go again even.
Now, Christian Sendel is on a lap. Jan Fehler has started his lap as well. So the two McLarens, my choice anyway, as the constructors to be able to take the constructor title come the end of the season, have started their first flying laps of the season. And let's see whether Christian Sendel can knock the current reigning champion of Vallu off the top spot.
Now, Christian ranked 4th in the power rankings, but ranked 1st in Q1 for the time being. The first driver into the 118s, and that is comfortably faster than what Vallu was able to do. So Christian really coming up big there. Here comes his teammate Jan Fehler, who'll be looking to knock him off the top spot. Doesn't matter too much here in Q1, of course, but for pride's sake, here comes Jan Fehler into the 118s as well, but not as fast as Christian Sendel. So very, very first blood, the tiniest little paper cut going to Sendel in the all-German McLaren battle.
Exciting stuff then here for Q1, the opening qualifying session of FXR Season 3. But let's not get too excited. Still got a way to go and you can be almost guaranteed that those times are going to drop much more as the track gets more and more rubbed in over the course of the session. Let's look down towards who is in the knockout zone as well, Jacob. We've got Vexit, who still is yet to complete a lap. The Italian Haas pairing of Marincello and Zola, as well as Ollie P in P16.
Yeah, of course, with only 19 drivers here today, I don't think Zay was able to make qualifying. Hopefully Zay will be able to actually make it for the race. I'm not entirely sure about that. But we do only have 4 drivers here exiting in Q1. Bit of a lifeline for certain drivers, but I don't think anyone in the 120s can feel safe. And even the likes of Sandro probably won't feel too safe on that 19.9 either. It's going to be an interesting call whether Sandro is going to brave it out, sitting up there in 11th for the time being. But Ollie will be pretty disappointed being down there in 16th, and is out there once again pushing. Same for Zola, but has backed out of this lap, has the Italian in the Haas and diving straight back into the pits. Just about has enough time to change tyres and go out again, but it's starting to get really edgy for those at the very bottom.
Zola had a huge tank slapper on the exit of 14, so decided to abort. Ollie P, 7,000s down at the end of Sector 1, but he had a really nice run through Clark Chicane and is 1.5 at 10s up, so is right on the cusp of breaking into the 119s, which will jump him up from P16 all the way up to around where Sandro is in P11.
Potential traffic up ahead as there's a few people sort of waiting in the final sector. Vallu gets nicely out of the way, though, and I think that's going to be a clean run to the line now for Ollie P, as using all the road on the entry to that final corner, always critical to open up the angle as much as possible. Getting the power down, DRS wide open, and across the line, up into 11th we go for Ollie P. That might just be enough to guarantee safety. Sandro has decided that he needs to go back out there, as well as Ice Looper and even Peso going back out there. Vexit still out here and pushing as well.
And then we can see Vexit, the Englishman, our third driver in the power rankings, currently down in P19. This is practically his last chance. If he's only fueled for 1 lap, if he's fueled for 2 laps, he can have a second chance. But Vexit will want to get it all done and dusted on this lap itself.
Yeah, and actually got a bit hot once again into 9 and 10. That's where we saw Vexit invalidating last time around and almost committing the same error there. Just about gathered it together, but will have lost time in that corner. So maybe under a bit more pressure than we were expecting here for Vexit. But critically, that track map is not lit up in red, which means the lap time will still be good for Vexit, as long as it's actually good, if you catch what I'm trying to say. As long as it's fast, the lap time will be enough here, as long as Vexit doesn't invalidate in his final couple of corners, where it's very hard to do so indeed. No trouble through there. Now just a right-hander to go, not using all the road on the entry, interestingly enough, but should have enough pace, nevertheless, to see Vexit through, and indeed, it is up into 3rd, but not quite able to challenge the 2 McLarens, so Christian Sendel, Jan Fehler got to be feeling pretty good right now.
I tell you what, Jacob, it was good, and it was good as well from Vexit, as Vallu goes even better, an 18.9 coming through, and the top 4 separated by 0.2 of a second, and you can really see already that in this season, Season 3 of FXR, this is a McLaren Red Bull showdown.
Yeah, McLaren Red Bull showdown, but Jay Hammer's not too far away. Jeffrey Ritchie's on an outlap as well, so we might see improvement from him and Peso. I'm interested that so many drivers are going back out again, even ones who are basically, or who are pretty much guaranteed safe to get through into Q2. But nevertheless, people wanting to reassert their pace, the likes of Vallu, who really didn't need to go out again. Here is Peso, the Williams driver. Again, this is just a bit of a sighter lap for Peso going into Q2, getting their eye in just a little bit more, and maybe trying to scare some opposition as well, but runs wide there and picks up an invalidation. Makes a mess of the penultimate corner as well. So this will be a lap time set by Peso, but it will not count because of that invalidation. And what would it have been? It would have only been a 1:19.6 anyway. Wouldn't have even been an improvement there for the Czech driver. But Ricardo, Zola, both out there pushing. They're both in the drop zone right now, so let's watch their laps with interest.
And Ricardo, 2.5 seconds down. He's not going to be able to cross the line in time, so Ricardo is going to be the first driver in FXR Season 3 to get knocked out in Q1. Zola is improving, so could potentially squeeze their way through into the second session of qualifying, but through the fast left-right of 11 and 12, just slight understeer into 11, which causes him to run wide.
It wasn't quite such a fast left-right as it usually is there for the Italian. as we see the Italian colours on the crash helmet as well in that Haas. Smooth final sector to the lap, though. Not quite making the apex of the left-hander here. Tricky corner. Very difficult to get right. Counter steer in the final corner, running too wide, almost into the wall. Doesn't invalidate, but that's going to have cost a lot of time. Here comes Zola, and it's a 120.020. That's just enough for now, but all it takes is for Cameron Cooper, Labrax, Ricardo, or Maranello to improve, and they will knock Zola back down into the bottom. Ollie P also, his best is a 119.8, so still looking pretty vulnerable right now. Maranello will not be able to get out as he retires. I think that's actually incident. There it is. On the exit of turn 12, Maranello has ended up in the wall, so will qualify 19th and last. Here is Labrax then, the Dutchman in the Renault. And, oh dear, there's a crash there for Jeffrey Ritchie, but just about keeping all wheels on the wagon. That's pretty critical, but let's cut back to Labrax, who's about to try and squeak his way into Q2 here. Ricardo also out there pushing as well. But here comes the Renault up towards the line. What's it going to be? It's enough. Up into 11th we go. Now Ricardo, the last challenger as Cameron Cooper's headed back into the pits. It's Sandro who's on the bubble. This could be a big upset if Sandro is going to be knocked out here. KX Ricardo, the Hong Kong driver, trying to be the one to do it as we round the final corner and head up towards the line.
Last.
Where will the Pink Panther be? It's enough. It's up in the 12th and Sandro is out.
Sandro, the Division 1 P2 driver, out in Q1. That is not what we were expecting. Cameron Cooper dropping out as well. He was one of those drivers, Jacob, that we were unsure how quick he would be, how well he'd be able to perform, but he is out in the first session of qualifying. Actually, just to give a bit of information actually on Cameron, we were riding on board with him, and I think he ran a tad wide on the exit of turn 10. He tapped the wall, so I'm not sure if he picked up front wing damage, but if he did, it most certainly would have hampered the remainder of his lap.
Yeah, indeed. I did see that moment. I thought he just about kept it out of the wall, but it was very, very touch and go indeed. Christian Sendel with the fastest lap time, but as you can see, it is Sandro who is the top of the guys, get knocked out down in 16th, followed by Zola, Cameron Cooper, and Maranello. So both Hasses, a Williams and a Mercedes, getting knocked out here in Q1. And Jeffrey Ritchie, by the way, very lucky boy to still have all four wheels on that car after hitting the wall in exactly the same place as Maranello had done only a few moments before.
As Biggles put it, the Foster's wall claimed another victim, and it almost saw Jeffrey Ritchie out for Q2 as well as Q1. Zola, I don't know what happened in that final sector through the final corner. He just seemed to understeer so much. That was easily a 10th that he lost in that one corner alone.
It wasn't just understeer, it was counter steer in the middle of the corner, and it didn't look like the rear was getting away from him, but he lost confidence in the car, steered left, and that brought him wide through the remainder. Also, quick shout out to Riptide in chat, and yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. We might have underrated you a bit in the power rankings. I'm sorry, we really didn't know very much about you or your pace, but that was a good time there. I think you were 11th in that session, so Riptide comfortably making it through. Well done to you.
I was speaking to Riptide a bit earlier. We were doing some stewarding for the Division 1 and the Division 2 races, so he might have a surprise hit coming later on in the race for those people who locked in Riptide into their fantasy teams. I know I did, and you might be getting some good points return, but still a way to go. And now that we're in Q2, Jacob, this is where strategies come into play, because here at Australia, the normal strategy, if you are starting in Q3, is soft hards. But if you're starting outside the top 10, the medium hards tend to work that little bit better, as the mediums have slightly more race pace.
Yeah, it's not a huge delta, I wouldn't say, between the two strategies, but there is a bit of improvement to be had if you can qualify on the mediums. And we might well see the McLarens and the Red Bulls going for a medium tyre qualifying lap here in Q2 to try and allow them to start on that tyre when we get into the race. Once again, it is going to be Ben who was the first one out there, with Jeffrey Ritchie just not quite being able to get out there in time to foil the plans of the reserve driver who wants to be the first one to settle out in Q2, just like he was in Q1.
Jacob, I've just realized it's a brand new season of FXR, and you know what we haven't done yet? We haven't done one of our prediction battles.
Okay.
So, the point that I want to bring to you is, who do you think will take pole out of Jan Fehler, Christian Sendel, Vallu, and Vexit? And to Twitch, and I want our moderator to put in through those good old Twitch bets, Who do you think will take pole? Will it be a Red Bull driver or will it be a McLaren driver?
Ooh, okay. I am... Honestly, this is going to sound weird based on Q1, but I'm tempted by Vexit because Vexit made a discernible mistake, a pretty clear mistake that cost at least a tenth and a half, maybe more, on that best flying lap that we saw, and yet Vexit was still up there only a smidgen away from the lap times of those other drivers. So I think it's possible that there's more to come from Vexit than what we've seen. Of course, we didn't see the whole laps from both of the McLaren drivers or from Vallu, so it might have been that they made mistakes as well. But we did see that mistake from Vexit. So as long as Vexit can clean that up and avoid invalidations, I think Vexit might be in with a shout, but it really could be any one of those four.
I do agree with you. I think there was more pace in Vexit's time, but I also think that none of the other top three were giving it absolutely everything they had.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more time to be coming through. Our producer is saying a Vallu in our production chat, and I know Jane Tripkov is saying Sendel 100%. That is a confident. Yeah. Not even a 1% doubt that Christian Sendel will not beat, or not even a 1% chance, according to Jane Tripkov, that Sendel won't be a former esports driver.
Well, Jane Tripkov putting a lot of stock in time trials, and I think that's consistent with what else I know of Jane Tripkov. But yeah, no, Christian Sendel is actually the fastest of these guys in time trials around here by quite a margin, but I will say that Fehler doesn't really do time trials, so it doesn't necessarily line up, and similar story for Vexit. Here comes Ben across the line with a 1:19.334. That's a little bit of an improvement on what we saw from Ben in Q1, but I think that should be enough to get into the top 10, but it's going to be a bit touch and go with that one, and definitely not front-running pace. Interesting to see KX Ricardo going out there on medium tyres in the Racing Point.
KX Ricardo out on those mediums, and we did wonder what strategy will people go for. Will we see, those are top four drivers who are trying to make it through into Q3 on a set of mediums so that they have the better race strategy for the race that will be beginning in around about 20-25 minutes time, because it could give them such a huge advantage.
Indeed, it could do. And so if we're doing predictions as well, are we going to talk about who we reckon are going to go out in this session? Or because we are going to lose 5 drivers at the end of this one. Maybe one of them might be Jay Hamo, who has actually disconnected from the session. Hopefully the AlphaTauri driver can get back in, but hasn't managed to set a lap time thus far. But yeah, who do you reckon is going to be the 5 to leave us this session?
The 5 to leave us this session. Riptide, Ollie P, Ice Looper, KX Ricardo, and I'm going to go, I want to say Connor, but you know what? I'm going to go with Lars Algero. He just seemed, it doesn't seem like Melbourne is his track.
Yeah, I mean that's possible. I could see that. So Lars Algero, I think I agree with you for the most of those. I think it's between Lars Algero and Labrax for who's going to be the one to go out in 11th compared to 10th. But of course, we could see some improved performance coming into this session as well, or some drivers making mistakes, as Vexit has done, but it's only an outlap, so we don't need to worry about that bright red track map on the right-hand side. But of course, if some people try and run medium tyres at the very end of qualifying, they might get caught out as well. So it's not nailed on, but I do basically agree with your predictions, but I'll switch in Labrax for Lars.
Labrax for Lars. I almost forgot I didn't include Labrax. But then again, Labrax was one of those drivers that we have, a slight sneaky suspicion, a sixth sense that he could potentially bring something a little bit quicker to the table. But we'll see, because Q2 is crunch time for a lot of these drivers, and while they may not have been giving it 100% in Q1, maybe just going 95% just to make sure that they can set some clean laps. Unlike this man, Vexit, who invalidated his first run in Q1, and here for his first run in Q2, we'll be hoping to keep it nice and spotless on the soft tires as well, so not thinking about his race strategy at the moment.
And it's also interesting to see Vexit going out pretty early in this session relative to what we saw in Q1. None of this waiting to the very end to get out there and try and set a lap time. Vexit does not want to pile on the pressure on himself when he makes a mistake like that. It's another invalidation for Vexit, and every one of these invalidations getting me a little bit more nervous now about my prediction, and that one was just through running wide through turn 4. A relatively common place to invalidate, but something that drivers at this level ought to be able to avoid when it really comes to it.
Let's see what Jeffrey Ritchie can do. He's on an outlap at the moment, but We expected a fair amount from the Shizou Academy drivers. He makes his way through the final corner to start his lap. Jan Fehler, Christian Sendel on outlaps as well. Vexit, of course, had invalidated his lap. Vallu on a hot lap there too. But Jeffrey Ritchie on these medium compound of tyres and has a big moment through turn one. Not huge, but that rear end just trying to step out as he gets on the power on the exit of one.
It was very well held, though, I gotta say, by the Dutchman there, and managed to avoid an invalidation in the process as well. I really thought that was going to be too wide in the second corner, but nothing of the sort. So we'll continue on with this lap. Purple sector 1 according to the track map, but that usually lies to us. Got a bit of traffic with Vallu up ahead, but once again, the Finn getting well out of the way, allowing the Alfa Romeo pass down towards the Clark chicane, turns 9 and 10. A bit of a sort of early turn in there that Jeffrey steered out of and then back into the corner again. That's going to lose half a tenth. Just a little bit of sort of hesitation there in that one, but nice and committed here through 11 and 12, using as much road as possible on the exit of 12 and nothing more, so no invalidation there either. Into 13 we go. Jeffrey Ritchie always playing with the limits and always struggling to hold on to that car, but never seems completely out of control, using all the road on the exit once again. So, yeah, you definitely cannot say that Jeffrey's not throwing everything at this one as we head into the final corner and up towards the line for the Dutchman. Is this going to be good enough on the medium set of tyres?
It's a decent lap, in fairness, but it might not be enough to get him through into Q3 at 20.2 for the Alfa Romeo driver. Vexit again with an invalidated lap. Not what he wants at all. However, now riding on board with Jay Hamo. Quick driver, we saw his pace in Q1, and now in Q2, he's purple at the end of Sector 2. And one of the 7-8 drivers or so who is yet to complete a lap. Both McLarens have invalidated their lap time so far. Back to Jay Hamo as he makes his way into the final couple of corners. Nice and tidy so far. And the rear end really stepping out. There's the counter steering that we've been talking about over the course of qualifying. What will it be for the Alfa Romeo? A 19.4, and that is P3 in the session. Who else is on a lap? Labrax in the pits, Ice Looper in the pits as well, and Vallu had invalidated his lap time previously. Christian Sendel might have actually started a new lap as here's Riptide currently up in P5. Riptide, well, I tell you what, he's really proving any doubters wrong. Myself and Jacob included. We were unsure of where to put him, and I think P20 was undoubtedly the wrong position as one of the McLarens comes flying past, and that's Christian Sendel, who is actually on a set of medium tyres. So is Jan Fehler. So 3 drivers opting for the medium tyres in Q2. I'm sure Jeffrey Ritchie is going to be switching to a set of soft tyres, whether he opts to try to qualify in P11 or just tries to put in as fast of a time as possible on a new set of softs. We'll have to wait and see, but you can be almost assured that he'll be switching tyres over.
Hello, sorry about that. My internet is playing tricks on me. Hopefully it won't cut out again. And I'm just trying to get back into the thing right now. So you go ahead for the time being. I'll be just back in a moment.
And Ollie currently on that 20.1 is a bit of a jump from Lars Algera down in P6 to Ollie and Jeffrey Ritchie, as we see Ollie actually going purple at the end of Sector 1. We'll have to see whether that is true come the end of the lap, but his teammate Jay Hamo currently up on that 119.4 in P3, only a tenth shy of what Sidemax Motorsport driver of Ben has been able to do, so wouldn't be surprised if Ollie is able to find half a second or so over the course of this lap, and in fact has almost found 6/10 by the end of Sector 2, so is on course for a mid-19.
Indeed, and here we go then, and I once again can see the action here in qualifying, so I'm back here in time. And have you mentioned the prediction in the chat there?
Oh, I have not. I didn't realize it has come through, but there you go. Your predictions are available for who you think. Actually, it's who will we see better than a 118.6, and I think the answer to that is a likely yes, but you want to risk it for the biscuit, as they say, you can, as Ollie P puts in a 19.472.
Yeah, lots of points being put down behind that yes vote. So if you get no and you get it right, you get a big jackpot. That's all I'm going to say. Time is running out, though, on that one. And time is running out for some of these drivers to set a lap time here in Q2 as well. I'm surprised to see still so many drivers actually yet to register a lap time. Ricardo and Christian Sendel both still in the pits as well, with not too much time remaining in this session. But here comes Ice Looper then into the final sector of this attempt for the Renault driver. One of the drivers who's going to have to battle hard to try and get through Q2 and into Q3 here. But will this be enough? Or will we have to go again for the Renault driver? That is a decent lap time, up into the 19.5s, ahead of Connor Eddy. But Labrax goes to the top with a 1:19.302. All right, well, I guess I'm wrong about Labrax leaving in Q2 then.
Still a lot of time though, Jacob, and I think the times are most certainly going to drop. I can see Peso and Ben at the very least improving their times. Maybe we'll be seeing it from Jay Hamo as well. He certainly can go quicker than a 19.4 as Vexit's gone purple at the end of Sector 1, and that I can definitely believe.
Yeah, that time I think the track map might not be lying to us after all. Here's 9 and 10, bit of a nemesis corner for Vexit, and once again, using so much of that outside curb, which is sort of the inside of turn 10, if you will, really risking another invalidation there. Cutting a significant amount of turns 11 and 12, but just the right amount on both occasions, so that's all okay for the Englishman as we head into the final sector of the lap. No invalidation there, not running too wide on the exit either. Last major challenge to avoid the invalidation and just about keeping that front right on the road is enough for Vexit here. So as long as his lap is fast, and I'm pretty sure it will be, this will be enough to see Vexit through into the third stage of qualifying where we all expect to see him. And indeed, it's good enough for the very top of the order, a 1:18.912. So not the fastest lap time we've seen, but right up there.
Let's see what Vallu can do. Surely it's going to be a Red Bull 1-2 provisionally in Q2. Christian Sendel on an out lap. Jan Fehler on his hot lap already. Vallu across the line. It's quick. It's an 18.99.4. 800ths of his teammate. We knew these two would be close. They were close in Q1. They've been close in Q2. Let's see what Jan Fehler can pull out. He's purple at the end of Sector 2. And I have a feeling Vex is going to be dislodged from that P1 spot.
May well be, and I want a quick shout out to Peso's lap time, which just came through as well, a 1:19.000. That's much better than the 19.6s we were seeing in Q1 from the Czech driver. He's come out to play as well with the Red Bulls, only just shy of both of those lap times. But here comes Jan Fehler into the final corner now, right up towards the line. And it's only good enough for fourth for Jan Fehler, a 1:19.150. That should be enough to see the German through into Q3. But that's a little bit nervier than we might have been expecting from him. Here's Christian Sendel, who also needs to register this lap time. This is all about keeping it on the black stuff and avoiding an invalidation. There you can see several drivers, Ice Looper, Ollie P, J Hamo, Ben, and Labrax will not be able to improve any further as qualifying has come to its conclusion. So at the moment, it is Riptide, Lars Algera, Jeffrey Ritchie, Ricardo, and Christian Sendel who are in the drop zone. But Christian should be finding his way out of there.
Every single driver from Labrax down could technically be eliminated. And don't forget, Jan Fehler, while it's not a quick lap, this is Q2. Those are the tyres he'll be starting on for the race. So you do want to keep them in good nick, and you don't always give it 100%. And that could very well be what Jan Fehler is going for. But Christian Sendel pushing as one of the Red Bulls, getting well out of the way on the exit of turn 14. Christian Sendel then to complete his lap.
Oh, he played with fire on the exit of that final corner with the bit on the road. And it's good enough, and definitely good enough. A 1:18.615 for Christian Sendel. There's the 1:18.6 for your chat. And now it's just Connor Eddy with a chance to try and get inside the top 10. Riptide has snuck a place in P10 for the time being. Lars Algera comfortably inside the top 10. Ricardo had to go into the pits, didn't match to the lap time, but here comes Connor Eddy. Will this be enough? Yes, it will. Riptide descends into 11th and out in Q2. Ben squeaking through with that 1:19.3 we saw at the very beginning of qualifying, and Connor Eddy makes it in as well.
Great stuff in Q2, very close as well. If you count Christian Sendel out, you're talking about 6/10 from Vexit all the way down to Ice Looper. And, well, Ben missing out by 1,000th of a second from, or pardon me, 100th of a second from a spot in Q3. Nipple tuck, but at the end of the day, Ben has that fresh set of tyres for the race, so I think the Side Max Motorsports driver will be pretty happy.
I disagree with you on one part. I think he will be happy, but I think he'll be happy because he's got into Q3 with a 10th place finish here in Q2. It is his teammate Ricardo who will be the Racing Point dropping out here in 15.
I don't know why I thought Ben was in P11 for a second.
It's all right. We all make mistakes.
Sometime, right? So it's Riptide. Riptide's very happy. Riptide's going to smurf in the race, without a doubt. Also, I just saw some karma coming through in the chat, which was Recreate talking about how he was going to get instant returns. Actually, I don't know. Wait, was the prediction only for Q2? Or was it for Q3 I thought it was for Q3 as well.
The prediction was a 1:18.6 or better, and we've already seen a 1:18.6 or better. So the outcome is yes, regardless of whether it's just for Q2 or not. And the yes sayers have it. And unfortunately for Outlaw, I think that might be a fair loss in terms of channel points there. So sorry for you, Outlaw, but hopefully you can win them back in future contests to come. But interesting, by the way, Jay Hamo actually getting knocked out there in 12th place. That is surprising to see.
Very surprising, Jacob, because Jay Hammer was one of the drivers that we thought... Okay, we said we weren't sure what his race pace was like, but we were fairly confident in his qualifying pace. We expected him to be towards the upper ends of qualifying order, and well, he hasn't really been able to deliver here in Australia, starting outside the top 10 for his debut FXR race.
Indeed, and both of the drivers who we were trying to work out which one would go out in Q2, Labrax and Lars Algera, both of them have indeed made it through into Q3. But other than that, we were basically right. It was just Jay Hamo who fell out rather than those guys. But otherwise, our predictions were more or less sound. But now here we go into Q3, and this is where we really get into it. The battle for pole begins now. And once again, it is Ben out there first in the Racing Point.
Ben was out first in Q2. I think he was out first in Q1 as well. So trying to get some airtime for Side Max Motorsports, and it is working pretty well.
Tell you what, whoever made this new poll in chat, by the way, is brave, because they've said who will get pole position, Mclaren or Red Bull? Well, what if it's Peso? You know, what if it's someone else? I think it's probably going to be McLaren or Red Bull, but there's not a 0% chance that it'll be someone else.
That is true.
So if that happens, then I don't know how that one's going to get resolved, but good luck, mods, on working that one out. But yeah, you can vote now in chat.
I think it'd just go to whichever of the McLaren or Red Bulls finishes higher up the order, right?
Yeah, I would imagine it would have to be. That would be the tiebreaker in that scenario. But you can vote now on whether you think McLaren or Red Bull will get pole or finish higher up if someone else gets pole. And right now, the vote seems to be swinging towards McLaren after what we saw from Christian Sendel with that 1:18.6.
Christian Sendel looks quick, but just a public service announcement to all of our viewers. The times will be dropping. Every single one of those four will undoubtedly be going quicker. Peso as well, I wouldn't be surprised, as here comes a Ben to start the first flying lap of Q3 for FXR Season 3.
Yeah, and using all of the road there through turn 2, but keeping just about enough of the car on the road itself to avoid an invalidation. And into turn 3, maybe a little bit of a late apex there. Might have struggled with pickup on the exit, but there's not much of a straight afterwards, so it doesn't matter too much. Flat out right-hander of turn 5, turn 6, now 7, as we go through here, using a nice buffer on the exit of that corner as well, helping you get the power down nice and easy. Shortest possible route through 8, down towards 9, where you cut a significant amount of the inside, and 10, where you do the exact same. Avoiding the wall on the right-hand side and getting the power down without having the rear end kicking out is all you need. Down Lakeside Drive here towards turn 11, and then turn 12 as well. Beautifully done by Ben, very well calculated. This is looking very smooth and in control from the Racing Point as he heads into the final sector.
Smooth is the key here at Australia. Ben has, it hasn't just been smooth and slow. He has been pushing the limits. He makes his way into the final corner. Good times are 1:18, and that's what Ben will be aiming for, or at the very least, a low 1:19 across the line, and it is a 19.3.
19.3, that's exactly what we saw from Ben in that last qualifying session, Q2 as well. Jeffrey Ritchie already knocks Ben off the top spot with a 1:19.229. But that's still going to be improved upon by several drivers, you would have to imagine. Lars Algera is going to try his hand at that as he comes up towards the line. It's only a 19.328. So the Alphas are first and second for now, but there's only been 3 drivers across the line. And the likes of Connor Eddy, Labrax, Vexit, Peso, all out there on flying laps. There's Vexit across the line and already into the 118s once again with a 118.972. Not quite pole position, but it's decent thus far. Here comes Connor Eddy, and it's only a 19.5. And Labrax is facing the wrong way on the main straight.
Classic just getting on the power too eagerly on the exit of the final corner. Spins up the rears and sends him facing the wrong direction. Vallu getting ready to start his flying lap. Christian Sendel as well. Peso is on a hot lap, and he's actually just behind Vallu as well. So we'll see where Peso can end up. Remember, you put in a fairly quick time back in Q2.
We will see what this is going to be then from Peso. It's a 19.085, so not quite matching his Q2 performance. And that's not going to be troubling the front row of the grid, you'd have to imagine, once Vallu, Christian Sendel, and Jan Fehler have all managed to set their lap times as well. But nevertheless, a decent start to Q3 there from Vexit and Peso, but neither of them matching their personal bests quite in qualifying, I don't think. So they will surely be looking for a bit more improvement on their second runs in this session. Here's Vallu, who's going to be looking for some improvement right now as a purple first sector. That could well be believed as we head now into 9 and 10. Really nicely judged there. Always in control of that car was Vallu as we head through the long turn 10 towards turn 11 once again, flicking the car left just now and not taking so much curb, and that's going to compromise the line and the angle just a little bit through 12, the right-hander there. So Vallu might have had to scrub off a little bit more speed than he would have liked through that one. Nicely done through 13, though. That all seemed pretty solid. As now we get to look at Vexit in the pits, but here we go. Vallu into that final corner. Let's see where this is going to put the Finnish driver. All he has to do is this final corner right now, and that is smooth as you like. DRS open, and up towards the line we go. Where is this going to be? And it is to the top for now, a 118.739, and that is more like it from Vallu, getting close to what we saw from Sendel.
Jan Fehler about to complete a lap, and only P4, 19.1 from the Comrade Gaming driver. He will not be happy with that. As Jay Hamo leaves the session, hopefully he can get back in time for the race. Christian Sendel, though, is absolutely on it. A purple at the end of Sector 2. He put in an 18.6 back in the second session of qualifying. Can he go even quicker? Can he find that 118.5?
Can he do it into the penultimate corner? All nice and tidy through there. All of the road on the entry here. Maybe a little bit of understeer through that final corner that Christian Sendel wouldn't have wanted, but it might still be fast enough. Up towards the line. There it is. It's the 118.6 once again. And Christian Sendit moves up to the top for now. But there's still time for Vallu, for Vexit, for Peso, for Jan Fehler to try and fight back.
All of the drivers in the pits or on the way back to the pits now, Jacob. So we've got a moment to breathe, run through everything. Labrax, the only driver yet to set a lap time after his spin on the exit of the final corner. And right now, the big surprise, Jan Fehler down in P5, half a second off the pace of his teammate Christian Sendel.
Yeah, and we saw this from Jan Fehler in Q2 as well. It was a 119.1 then. It's a 119.1 now as well for the German. And we saw his best lap time of qualifying thus far in the first session of qualifying. So we're seeing Jan Fehler maybe starting to bottle just a little bit towards the end of this qualifying session. In Q2, we thought maybe it might be to do with trying to preserve those tyres, the tyres that Jan Fehler was going to have to start the race on. But now, you don't really have that excuse. So Jan down in 5th. It's still a very good lap time, don't get me wrong. But it's nowhere near what we know Jan Fehler is capable of.
The Super Swede showing his form right now. Vallu not too far off the pace. So this could all change in the remaining 4 minutes as now everyone is on the pit or is in the pit lane. We'll see who'll be the first to jump out. And everyone will have one more lap, as I think that is one of the Alphas heading out of Lars Algera or Jeffrey Ritchie.
Yeah, we will see which one that is. And not sure that flashcard there for Christian Sendel was quite right. I don't think he is actually a Swedish driver. I believe he's a German. Maybe he's got dual nationality that I don't know about. But here's Ben then out there. Once again, always the first one in the racing point.
Always wants to put down the benchmark. Doesn't want to be the driver under pressure, clearly. And some drivers do perform better than others when it comes to these later stages of the qualifying. I know that for myself, I always like to be the very last person to start a lap, having all the information possible. But others, they want to be out there slightly earlier, not have any pressure on them, and just be able to set their lap without any interference, let's say.
Indeed. So that is exactly what Ben wants. And however, you do run the risk this way of having multiple drivers on an out lap when you're on a flying lap, which is worse usually because you're going to be coming at them at a rate of knots, and they're going to be out there trying to warm up their tires, minding their own business. They might not be expecting to see another driver on a flying lap at that stage as well, when literally everyone else is on an out lap. As though we see Ben just slowing down here towards the end of his out lap. But that could cause problems once we get into the flying lap for the Racing Point driver. It depends on how well timed it is, but we are seeing a trickle of drivers leaving the pit lane now. So Ben is running the risk of catching up to them on this flying lap.
If he really looks after the tires, he could technically do 2 out laps. It is possible. I don't know if he'd want to do that. We'll see whether he puts the hammer down on the exit of the final corner. It looks like he most certainly is giving it everything. Here we go then for Ben, or as other people may know him, Verstappen, his final lap in Q3.
And actually, it looks like the Red Sea has parted nicely for Ben, finding his way in between the 2 Alfa Romeos with plenty of free track up ahead. So I don't think the traffic's going to play too much of a role for the Racing Point, and this should be a clear run to the line for his final attempt here in qualifying in his first race in Premier X. Stepping in as a reserve driver here today for Yanni Tripkov, who will be a regular driver for Racing Point throughout this season. Here is Ben, though, through that first sector. It looked all okay thus far, and towards 9 and 10 we go.
Ben currently on that 119.3, and that is a big moment, but he keeps it in check, and I wonder how much time he would have lost. It wouldn't have been a huge amount, maybe a tenth or so, and at the end of Sector 2, despite it all, he is a tenth up on his personal best. He might be able to jump ahead of both Alfa Romeos of Lars Algera and Jeffrey Richards, and makes his way down into Sector 3.
Yeah, we'll see how much improvement there is in Sector 3 as well from Ben. We haven't seen anything better than a 19.3 thus far in qualifying from him, but if ever there was a time to do it, this is the time to try and pull it out through that final corner. Touch of understeer. That's going to delay the throttle application just a little bit, but it won't have hurt too much as we go up towards the line, and it's a 119.152. Not enough to displace Jan Thaler from 5th, but does get ahead of both of those Alfa Romeos, as you mentioned. But now it's time for them to fight back. Also, Vallu, Vexit, Peso, Jan Thaler, all on flying laps.
And here comes a Vexit on the way down in towards turn 6. Jan Thaler is coming to the end of his out lap, and never mind. And he should be able to start his hot lap in time. So it's all on the Red Bulls of Vallu and Vexit at the moment to see whether they can improve. Currently sitting down in P2 and P3. Jan Thaler will make his way through the final corner to start his final lap. And Vexit's purple. He takes so much curve, but too much curve through the final part of the chicane. And oh, dearie me for Vexit. P3 is the best that he'll be able to start.
Tell you what, with that first one, through turn 11, that line, he spat in the face of the RNG gods, and then through turn 12, they decided to pay him back for it, giving him that invalidation. I'm really surprised he didn't get it through the first part of that high-speed chicane. He might just about have enough time. It says time has ended here in qualifying, but that's not always reliable. Here comes Vallu, though, up towards the line. Vexit will not be able to settle lap time. Doesn't want to give a toe to his teammate either. And here comes Vallu across the line, and it's not quite enough. But it is oh so close to Christian Sendel's time. Peso manages to split the 2 Red Bulls there. Jan Thaler is out there pushing after doing a second out lap. Lars Algera gets ahead of Vexit as well. So that mistake is going to cost Vexit significantly here, losing out to both Peso and Lars Algera. Christian Sendel's out here on a flying lap, along with his teammate Jan Thaler. These are the 2 in a direct face-off for pole right now.
Mclaren versus Mclaren. I doubt Conneretti or Labrax can do too much. Conneretti jumps ahead of Jan Thaler, but what can Jan Thaler do? The F1 Esports driver into the final couple of corners. He was purple through Sector 2, and Jacob, can he make it at McLaren 1-2?
Sendel's in the pits. He has a chance up towards the line. Jan Thaler, what's it going to be? Oh, the 118.636. It is oh so close between Christian Sendel, Jan Thaler, and Vallu. But it is Christian Sendel who didn't need a second crack at it in the end in Q3, and he takes pole position in his debut race here in Premier X here in Formula X racing.
I think our production was as shocked as us. Went to take a quick screenshot of it because, yes, 200 separate the top three. And before we jump into the race, I do want to take a look at the race director just to see how quick Vexit was in sectors 1 and 2, because I honestly think Vexit could have wedged his way right in those top 3, top of 4. Oh, such a shame for the Brit. And, well...
He's a 10th up in both. He was a 10th up in both. It was going to be an 18-7 at the very least, as long as he had a decent final sector there. Oh, he could have been right there as well.
And he was gaining time as well in that chicane with how much track he was able to cut through the left-hander. It was a frankly ridiculous, but this does mean we should see some exciting racing from Vexit, who will have to work his way through the likes of Lars Algera and Peso to get to arguably where he belongs in that P4 spot.
Indeed. And a great qualifying as well to start off this season. Season 3 of Premier X. It was so very close at the top. And that, after a couple of seasons of some pretty dominant drivers, that is what we love to see.
I think that has been the closest Q3 we have had throughout the entirety of FXR, and what a way to kickstart Season 3.
Indeed, yeah. But now we will be getting into the race itself in just a moment's time, barring any issues. But of course, that's a pretty significant if. And Vexit leaving the session, apparently a game crash there for the Red Bull driver.
Oh, no.
So hopefully he'll be able to get back in time for the race to start and it won't cause issues. Thankfully, the negative tire temperature, that has been removed. So that shouldn't be an issue for him as long as he's able to reconnect before the end of the formation lap.
I do believe it has been fixed according to the Codemasters patch notes, but then again, can you ever believe the Codemasters patch notes? Vexit will be hoping that he can. Q3, I say Q3. Q3 is done and dusted. The race is about to start. It's time for our second rounds of predictions then. Top 3.
Top 3, okay. I think Christian Sendel's got this. I think he'll take the win here today. It could be any one of the top 3 to take the win. Peso's in with an outside shout as well. Vexit's starting down in 6th. I don't think he'll be able to make it. And judging by the trouble he was having in stringing a lap together in qualifying, I'm expecting some time penalties coming through for him as well. So I'm going to say Christian Sendel for first. I'm going to say Vallu for second and Jan Fehler in third.
I'm going to go Jan Fehler, Christian Sendel, and Vallu in third. I think Jan Fehler has that experience. And let's be honest, it was super close between the top 3. Honestly, if they go out and do those laps again, it could entirely reverse between them. So I think Jan Fehler has the experience, and I think he also has the advantage in the fact that he's behind Christian Sendel when it comes to effectively being able to go on a slightly alternate strategy from Christian, and then maybe having a slightly better position come the end of the race, being able to save his ERS as well. I think Jan Fehler will be able to find a way through Christian, but I think the Mclarens will be able to work together to prevent the Red Bulls of Vallu, Vexit, as well as Peso and Lars Algera from splitting them apart.
Yeah, we might well see some decent teamwork between those guys. It's yet to see whether that will be the case or not, though. Interesting to note that of the drivers outside the top 10 here, Riptide, Ice Looper, and KX Ricardo all opting for a set of soft tires for the beginning of this race, but both Alpha Tauris, who are in the middle of those drivers, going for mediums. So Ice Looper and Ricardo, they're going to be pretty keen to try and get past the likes of Jay Hamo and Ollie P in the first few laps. Otherwise, they'll get bogged down on medium tire pace when their soft tires are at their fastest.
And according to Yanni Tripkov, Vallu is without that racing line, and if that is the case, it is his race pace that usually does get affected by this, and it might mean a slow start to the season for the Finnish driver.
I mean, we didn't see a single invalidation though in that qualifying, I don't believe. So, I mean, that is something we would be expecting to see. If he was still struggling without that line, I think we'd have seen more of those invalidations, but he's not done it. He's had a clean qualifying session. A lot of drivers leaving the session here and a migrating host. So I think we're probably going to have a bit of a lobby reset on this one, judging by the way it's going here. So we'll just quickly try and get an update on that. And indeed, we are going to have a lobby restart. So sorry about the delay here. Nothing we can do. It's a Codemasters issue as ever. So you can ignore this race start you're about to see in front of you. And we'll just have to wait just a little bit longer for the beginning of our first race in Premier X Season 3. But this looks like a banger start, to be fair, with Vallu already alongside making contact with Jan Fehler. But yeah, this is going to be a restart, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, and hopefully the drivers do see the fact that it's a lobby restart. A lot of times once you get very late into, the end of the formation, like you don't look towards the Discord, and as a result, it can affect the drivers. But at the moment, they're giving it a full send, and all you really need is one or two drivers to leave the session, and then it makes some of the other drivers think, oh, wait, is there a chance that there is actually a lobby restart? Because at the moment, I don't think the drivers have realized.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, anytime you see the words migrating host, I think you can probably say, that's going to be a restart. But maybe not. We'll see. As a Red Bull pulling over to the side, that should help proceedings, I think.
The best thing you can do as a driver is if you know it's a lobby restart, you go full send into a corner and you wipe out the field. That way it forces a lot of drivers to realize that there's something up and to check. I've got my goggles on because I was using my chief track analysis eyes to view just how close the qualifying at times were, and it really helped me.
Yeah,
but not my camera.
Yeah, it doesn't help with your visibility though. Every time you put those glasses on, you sort of do something. There's some sort of tech involved in those goggles that it's starting to clear up.
Oh no,
never mind.
Okay,
no, they were very important.
Put
them back on, please.
See, it worked. It worked. Right?
Apparently, those were absolutely integral to the stream functioning properly. So glad you got those back on now. Yeah, but yeah, just a bit of a break here, and we will be back into the action very shortly. But while we're here, everyone in chat, why don't you let us know who you reckon is going to win this race, and if there's any drivers you reckon we should watch out for in the race itself, people starting maybe a bit below where you might expect.
I think Vexit's one driver that's starting below where most people expected. I know I had him to be starting in the top 4. Aside from him, a lot of things as expected. Riptide really proving his worth at getting up into Q3. Sandro struggling in qualifying. He did struggle a lot in qualifying, to be fair, back in Division 1 for Season 2. I remember when the pair of us were knocked out in Q2 in Bahrain. Oh, Bahrain? We didn't race at Bahrain. It was in Azerbaijan, Baku. And that was rather embarrassing, although we played it off as a tactic. So I wonder if Sandro will do the same.
Played it off as a tactic. It all comes out now as our own drive to survive moment where it turns out it wasn't in purpose. And Mercedes didn't actually tell Bottas to give him a tow or whatever. But we've got some predictions now coming through in chat as well. Yanni Tripkov, after absolutely standing Christian Sendel for the whole of qualifying, now predicts him to come third in the race with Jan Fehler out on top. So a bit of a betrayal there from Yanni, but whatever. Maybe it'll be Fehler, Vallu, and Sendel. That's the top 3 according to Yanni Tripkov. But I could definitely see that. I still reckon Christian's got this though.
Yeah, and I remember Yanni typing in the chat that Christian was his hero, and to be honest, it's it's a betrayal, isn't it, from Iceman, Yanni Tripkov there, especially because he used to say that I was his hero. So honestly, I'm flabbergasted.
You can't take anyone who calls you their hero. You cannot take them seriously. Surely you knew that couldn't possibly be true. But
production says that I'm their hero, right? Right.
I doubt it.
I'm gonna.
Luckily for you, production can't speak today because production's mic isn't working. So actually, he can't debate
production. They're gonna restart their PC just to fix their mic so they can scream. Oh no, he's just gonna type in chat anyway. Okay, apparently I'm not. To be honest, Jacob, I'm somewhat glad that we had a lobby restart because I was still in hysterics from your invalidating joke, and I'm glad that I've got some time to recover. And it's made me realize one of, the most satisfying things that I feel, one of the sexiest things that you can get on the F1 2020 game is, when you see a driver really just slowing the car down, really late on the brakes, and you just get that ever so slight under rotation on the front inside tire. It's just magnificent to watch. And you get that
tiniest little lockup. You like that?
It's brilliant because you just know that the car's right on its limit. And that tiny little lockup, for me, is just like a little tick mark to say, yes, you got it spot on.
Fair enough then. Yeah, no, I can see your logic behind that. I love what I think. I think a clean lap is always what I'm going to prefer. There, not a hint of smoke at any point from anything.
Okay.
But if that's what you like, I'm not here to judge what you're into. So you can be into whatever you're into, and I will not say
If
a
there's a
word
bit of
against
smoke, barbecue going on, get some of
it.
that barbecue flavor in. It's on fire. It's a pretty hot lap. All of that stuff, right?
It's a pretty hot lap with barbecue. So what are you?
Yeah.
What is this?
It's
Here?
a
Are you
hot barbecue, Jacob.
a
What is
hot
there not to
barbecue
love?
lap? Okay,
A hot
right. Well,
barbecue lap. We're in Australia. We're having hot barbecues, right? It all adds up.
right. Well, while you're pouring barbecue sauce all over your tires or whatever on earth you're doing, hopefully the drivers are getting back into the lobby. But yeah. Are we going to have any more predictions in chat as well coming up? Apparently, it's interesting actually. I'm seeing someone saying that Sandro had some issues in qualifying. I seem to remember in Q1. Maybe Sandro is a driver. I mean, Sandro is definitely a driver we're going to be expecting to come up through the field a little bit, starting down in 16th. So he's one driver that we can really look for action in the first sort of part of this race.
Yeah, and I do know that Sandro is racing with a new monitor as well. A couple of days ago, he posted a picture in Discord of his monitor with lots of cracks in it. He wouldn't
Ooh.
tell anyone how the cracks are formed, but there were cracks and he had to go and get a monitor. Otherwise, he's racing with like some small monitor. So I don't know which it is, but new monitor nonetheless for Sandro, and hopefully it won't be impairing his visibility out on track and we can see him in full force. And apparently, we are almost pretty much ready to go for the race. And, well, sure, the predictions will be still coming through thick and fast.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, I hear the background noise of the lobby. So hopefully we should be in there just a moment's time now. But for a little moment longer, you get to look at our faces, which is a dubious honor to say the least, at least in my case. But here we go.
Oh, no,
There we
no.
go.
You
The
guys,
track.
you guys are Jacob. Well, this is a glorious pit lane.
Yeah, it's a lovely pit lane here in Australia. Very wide pit lane, which is always nice. The drivers are now readying up and getting their setups nailed on. It takes a moment because the drivers have to get their setups back to where they want it and where they were in qualifying from the previous race, of course. So just making sure that's all in shape before now we get onto the grid for the formation lap once again. And hopefully everyone will have selected the same set of tires. So we can probably check that here. And no, someone selected different tires. There was a hard tire runner last time. I know it.
Marincello was on hards. I remember because it was the person who was at the back of the grid was on hards. To be honest, though, Jacob, they're outside the top 10, so...
It doesn't actually matter, maybe? Yeah, I'm thinking maybe that's okay because the race hadn't started and it wasn't a Q2 set of tires or anything like that. So, yeah. But either way, it's still Riptide, Ice Loop, and Ricardo starting on those softs. Now, you mentioned before the race in qualifying about the sort of medium to hard tire strategy generally being favored by most drivers. So are you surprised to see those three guys going for those softs when they had the free choice?
I'm very surprised, Jacob. I'm very, very surprised to see that coming through, I'll be honest with you. And to be fair, I think here at Australia, you don't really get DRS trains as much as you do somewhere like Bahrain or China, etc. So maybe the likes of Riptide thinks that if he can stay on the soft tires, he'll be able to pull away from the likes of Jay Hamo and Ollie P. And if he can, great. But I personally think Jay Hamo will be able to stick with him nonetheless. Going back to Marincello, it probably will still be investigated because there is still an issue with regards to the fact that Marincello would have seen all the other tires that everyone else has and is therefore getting a more informed decision and changing his tires as a result. So we'll see as got a bit of celebrity in the chat as well. Calcifer dropping down and saying hi. Well, if Calcifer was in this race, it would be even tighter towards the top of the standings. But either way, it's an all Mclaren lockout, and FXR Season 3 honestly is giving me vibes back to the likes of Formula 1 in 08, back when we had McLaren and Ferrari battling at the top of the standings, super close in pace.
Yeah, absolutely. And if only Sandro hadn't messed up in qualifying, we might have the Williams cosplaying the BMWs as well in 5th and 6th every race like it was back then in 2008. Or at least they were 5th and 6th in most races. Sometimes Kubica and Heidfeld were able to get some pretty good results in that season. That was a good season of F1, actually. I do like that one. But although it does have the greatest tragedy of all time in the history of F1, which is the 2008 Monaco Grand Prix when Adrian Sutil gets crashed out by Kimi Räikkönen. But never mind that, because here we are for the first race of the season, the Australian Grand Prix here in Premier X Season 3. And the lights go out. We wait for them to go out for the drivers. A long hold, but we are underway here in Australia. And it looks like a good start from Vallu there, but both Christian Sendel and Jan Fehler, they're going to be alongside each other into turn 1, but it is as you were from the front 3. Vexit challenging Lars Algero behind, but Lars has just been able to hold on to 5th for now. Vexit still sitting down there in 6th. Cameron Cooper, Zola battling at the back, and there is Vexit going for another go up the inside of Lars this time, and he takes the position away from the Alfa Romeo. Connor Eddy also getting past Ben there in that battle in turn 3 as well, but it's still the 2 McLarens leading from Vallu and Pacer.
Ben doesn't lose a position. Now will be coming under pressure from the other Alfa Romeo of Jeffrey Ritchie, but Christian Sendel really trying to send it on the opening lap, trying to pull as far ahead as he can of Jan Fehler, as you're just seeing. Jeffrey Ritchie having a little think about going down the inside of Ben, but a clean start from all, as we're seeing Ice Looper and Cameron Cooper battling further down the order as the Renault driver moves up to P15.
Yeah, it's important for Ice Looper because he lost out both to Ricciardo and to Cameron Cooper in that first lap there, and he doesn't want to be stuck behind medium tyre runners. That's Ricciardo who's had an issue at the very back. We saw a couple of DNFs here on the exit of turn 12, but it's a long way down. I wonder if there was contact there. The front wing miraculously seems like it's intact for the Racing Point driver, so he should be able to continue, but the Hong Kong driver will be down there in 19th, well off the back of the field.
Tell you someone who's not down there is Christian Sendel, who is now 8/10 clear of Jan Fehler. He's got one more lap to try to pull out of that DRS range. Well, a lap and a couple of straights as well, because technically the DRS won't come into play until they make their way down into turn 11 and 12 of the third lap of the race, as that's a time penalty going the way of Ricciardo speeding into the pit lane.
Yeah, maybe there was some front wing damage after all that I couldn't quite spot on the Racing Point, because Ricciardo did have to come into the pits there. Zola's retired from the race. I don't think that car is moving. That's the exit of turn 4, and we have a safety car. Zola in the Haas crashes out on the exit of turn 4, bringing out the first safety car of the season.
And this is terrible news for the likes of Jan Fehler, for Vexit, for Jeffrey Ritchie, the second drivers in a lot of teams. So right now they have to make a decision. Do they double stack? Do they lose what would be around about 5-6 positions from double stacking? You lose about 6 seconds when you double stack in the pits, or do they stay out on these soft tires and look for mediums? Because if they put on the hards right now, there's a chance that the hards don't make it, and we've seen plenty of times Jacob, in the races that we've cast, drivers pitting onto tires very early and picking up punctures in the latter stages of a race.
Absolutely, yeah. It might be too early for these guys to consider coming into the pits. Indeed, I believe Christian Sendel has stayed out. I think they're all going to follow suit. We are seeing Peso into the pit, so he's rolling the dice then. The Czech driver in the Williams wants to go for the win today and thinks the best way of doing that is by going the opposite direction to everyone else on this first lap. Sandro's in the pits as well. I noticed he was losing out pretty heavily in the first couple of laps, so I wonder if he had front wing damage that he'll have to change as well in the second of the 2 Williams. That is going to result in both of those cars going down into 16th and 17th positions at this point in the race, but with those hard tires, they'll be trying to make it to the end.
Now, some background information on Peso, and when Peso watches this stream back, he's going to absolutely hate me for saying this, but back in Division 1, Peso was known for always doing the wrong strategy behind the safety car, and I hope for him this time it is not the wrong strategy, because if this pays off, it could be a huge victory for the Williams team.
Indeed, yeah, and it would be both of them that would benefit as well. If this does work, they might be looking at some very healthy points here in the first race of the season to get their season up and running. The Division 1 Warriors from last season coming here into Premier X as full-time drivers now. And what better way could it be if they nail the strategy here in Australia? But Ricciardo is going to be doing the same as well, may as well, as at the back of the field anyway. So going onto that set of hard tyres, if it looks like it's going to get shaky towards the end, can of course just pit for a set of softs with a few laps to go and try and gun it to the end. if that is necessary. But looking down the rest of the field is interesting. I think Marinkello had a pretty good start actually on his medium tyres. The Haas driver made it up past his teammate who eventually crashed out, past Sandro as well, and up into about 16th before the safety car did come out. So he'll have gained a couple more since then as well.
Something else I'd like to bring up is the longer it takes for KX Ricciardo to close in onto this field, the better it is for the likes of Pesso and Sandro on those hard tyres, because it means it's more and more likely that they can get to the end without having to tyre safe, without having the risk of picking up a puncture in the final few laps. So KX Ricciardo, he's on the hard tyres as well, so take as long as you need to close up to the field.
Indeed, yeah. But I suppose there could be a bit of gamesmanship there for Ricciardo if they're really thinking about it, but we will see. But nevertheless, it's just hopefully not going to be too long behind this safety car before we get underway again, because I cannot wait to see these guys battling back out at the front. It's still Christian Sendel leading the way from Jan Fehler, Vallu, and Vexit behind this safety car. None of them going into the pits. It means we have a straight fight again between McLaren and Red Bull, now that Peso has kindly pitted to get out of the way, and Vexit was able to get past Lars Algera as well. And that is a resolved vote in chat as well in the predictions. Vallu did not manage to make it into first place come the end of lap 3. Unfortunately for you, yes voters, that safety car really did scupper your plans. In fact, there was only one yes voter anyway. So whoever you are, I'm sorry that you've lost out on this occasion.
I'll be honest, Jacob. I'm not sorry. That's a crazy vote to put. They deserve to lose that bet. I mean, just no. Right. Either way, I'm sure there'll be another vote coming through. Sorry if that came across a bit harsh. It's all meant in good jest.
Oh,
however,
Ben. What's happened to Ben? Why is Ben falling down the order? Down into 16th. Has he lost it behind the safety car? Ben!
Oh, no.
That is not good at all. Looks like it was in the traction zone of turn 10, and as a result, finds himself behind Peso. So Peso gains a free position, but also gains an angry driver on soft tyres just behind him that he might have to watch out in his rearview mirror for when we get this back underway. Safety car is coming in this lap, so the race will resume shortly.
And it is a McLaren 1-2 from a Red Bull 3-4 and Alfa Romeo 5-7. Let's see then, Christian Sendel, how clean will his start be? When does he pull the trigger?
When indeed. It could be any time now. The safety car is in the pit lane, so they can gun it whenever, and out to the final corner it will be for the two Germans in the McLarens leading the way. Vexit's got a good restart, pretty close up behind his teammate Vallu there, who was slightly slow at getting back underway. Ice Loop had an issue as well out of the final corner. And that's Ben going into the pits as well. So he must have picked up front wing damage. Ice Looper falling all the way down. I didn't catch what happened, but we did see the Renault losing it in qualifying at some point out of that final corner before. Chaotic battling here at the back as Sandro, Ricciardo, Ice Looper all trying to go side by side here. Sandro desperate to hold on to that position ahead of the racing point, but the Hong Kong driver goes all the way around the outside. Beautifully done by Ricciardo up into 15th. But already, because of this battling, a 2.3 second gap forming between Peso and the rest of the hard tyre runners.
And now here comes Ice Looper looking for the inside, and Sandro's really struggling on these hard tyres. It does take a while to build up temperature, and maybe Sandro's tyres just a little bit cool on the safety car restart, which is why Ricciardo's been able to get such a jump on the Belgian driver. Just looking up the order, Christian Sendel still pushing, pulling away from Jan Fehler as Riptide picks up the first time penalty of the race.
That first 3 second time penalty goes to Riptide, who's currently inside the top 10, but is the bottom of the soft tyre runners if you ignore Ice Looper down in 17th place. The gaps at the very front are expanding quite a lot, actually. 7/10 down between Sendel and Fehler, and Vallu is falling away from the front too, with Vexit all over his gearbox. So we might well see a change of position between the two Red Bulls right now. Vallu not looking too hot at this stage of the race.
And I do wonder if how much Vallu is struggling, whether team orders are in play at Red Bull. I highly doubt it, and I think Vexit is going to have to work hard if he wants to find any way past the Finnish driver, as Vallu able to get back within that 1 second range of Jan Fehler. And that's all he has to do. Stay within the DRS range, be able to tag along. Usually we see drivers pitting at around, I want to say lap 9, lap 10 from the softs onto the hard tyres. But because of a safety car, expect that to shift 1 or 2 laps later. and probably the ideal time to pit would be around that lap 11 mark.
Alex Luber's getting past Sandro for P16. So Sandro's race going from bad to worse. We expected a charge from the Belgian after a poor qualifying. Right now, he's a position down on where he started. Of course, he did come into the pits to change a front wing under the safety car, but nevertheless, losing out to Ricciardo and then to Ice Looper. Sandro Van Sand really struggling at this point. Ben also had another incident, I believe, on the main straight and has fallen well off the back of the field. And Vallu already picking up a 3-second time penalty as well, pretty early on into the race. He has maybe tactically used that to get back within DRS range of Jan Fehler, because he is within that 1 second mark right now. And that could be critical to help him defend from his teammate behind, but will they want to play the team game here? Both Sidemax Motorworks drivers as well as Red Bull drivers. So it's possible that Vallu will want to let Vexit through to chase down the front two.
And Vallu picked up that time penalty on the exit of turn 14, so carrying a bit too much speed running wide. Not a usual place to pick up a time penalty, but Vallu managed it, and Jan Fehler almost on the verge, dropping outside of that 1 second range to Christian Sendel. The first DRS detection point is on the exit of this short straight in towards turn 9 and 10, the Clark chicane.
Yeah, there's two orange McLarens leading the way from the two navy blue Red Bulls, and they are all flying in formation for the time being. Vexit with a bit of a weird rotation with the rear end there out of turn 10, but held onto it pretty nicely. After these four, there is a bit of a gap down to Lars Algera starting to form outside of DRS range. 1.5 seconds behind is the Alfa Romeo. Ben is going to retire from the race in the pits. The race is looking pretty hopeless and does not want to redeem his points for coming across the line in 18th. Of course, here in Formula X Racing, you do get points no matter where you finish, but Ben is a reserve driver, so that might not mean so much to him, as Ice Looper and Sandro both picking up time penalties as well. So those are starting to accrue throughout the field. Jan Fehler into the pits from second.
This is a very, very early pit stop from the soft tyres. So Jan Fehler trying to get off a pretty huge undercut on it to Christian Sendel. And for a second, I thought those were medium tyres going on, but it is the hard, the white walled compound. And Jan Fehler is going to feed out all the way down in what is effectively last position at P17.
Yeah, so now you see how good a position Peso is in as long as those hard tyres can make it to the end. If they can, if Peso can hold on to those tyres, there is a huge delta between where these guys are going to come out of the pits, the soft tyre runners, compared to where Peso is going to be. So the race might be in Peso's hands. This might have been a brilliant strategy call if he can make those hards last to the end, but he's definitely going to be getting close to puncture territory, if not in puncture territory, in those last few laps. So he might be leaving it up to the lap of the gods to decide whether he will win this race here today or not. Here is Connor Eddy, pretty close behind Lars Algera, who's struggling for pace just a little bit there in fourth, but running a little bit higher than where he might have expected to be. The Canadian driver doing a good job here in his first race in Premier X, and Connor looking to try and take fourth away.
Crucially, Lars Algera does not have a DRS from Vexit. Actually, Vexit's 4/10 behind Vallu, and Vallu is 2.5 seconds behind Christian Sendel. It's a bit too far back to have a go into turn 1. Let's see if Connor Eddy can do anything. I think Connor just a bit too far back as we saw Vexit slotting in behind Vallu for now as Lars Algera runs a bit wide on the exit of turn 1, and this could give Connor Eddy the chance as the Shizou driver will close in on the run into turn 3, but too far back to have a set.
Yeah, indeed. Not close enough there from Connor Eddy. And Ice Looper getting past KX Ricardo towards the back of the field as well. Bit of a yellow flag there. I think KX Ricardo had a moment on the exit of turn 2. Not a major moment, as still ahead of Sandro, but down in 15th for the time being. Jan Fehler is getting closer to the rear end of the Williams in 16th, but not at a huge rate of knots right now. Look at the gap between Christian Sendel and Vallu. Vexit really wants to get past his teammate right now to try and challenge Christian, because at the moment, the German in the McLaren is really getting away from him.
Vexit seemingly having more pace than Vallu's lost the rear end.
Oh,
what a save! That was incredible from Vallu. Any other driver would have easily lost the wheel, but somehow Vallu has come out of it with no visible damage. Expect him, though, to come into the pits at the end of this lap for a set of hards.
Yeah, may well need a wing change as well. It's hard to tell. Doesn't look like there's very much damage, if any. So Vallu might have just got absolutely away with it, as once again the rears light up there on the exit of turn 15. And Vallu heading into the pits to get rid of that overheated, now useless set of red-walled soft tyres It's going to be
Is
the
there a
white
front
wall
wing?
medium going onto this car to the end of the race, and the front wing stays on the car.
No wing damage. Wow. Remember, Jacob, back in our opening race of Season 2, the save of the race was, I believe it was Rainbow, somehow not crashing into a sideways max. This is that save. This is the equivalent of that save, and this has saved Vallu's race. He comes out 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds behind Jan Fehler. Vallu has bit the bullet, and it has survived.
Yeah, and imagine if he hadn't had that incident as well. He would have been a lot closer to Jan Fehler. I think Jan pitted a little bit too early. These soft tyres are holding up pretty well for the guys towards the very front, so I don't think the undercut's going to come off between Christian Sendel and Jan Fehler. Christian is risking it, though. He didn't immediately pit to cover off Jan, not taking the bait on that one whatsoever, staying out longer. And it'll be interesting to see whether it pays off for him or not. But he is definitely taking a risk in staying out there on those soft tyres at this stage. Vexit now 3 seconds behind Christian Sendel. Clear of his teammate is the Red Bull driver, but he's still not getting any closer to the Mclaren in the lead.
And I think Jeffrey should pit this lap if Lars Algero does not pit himself. And there you go. Jeffrey's going to dive on into the pits. He's losing time behind Connor, Eddie, and Lars. And we've already seen plenty of drivers heading on into the pit. Same going for Vexit. So we're not really going to be able to see whether Vexit was gaining time on Christian Sendel. And Jeffrey Ritchie will actually hold Vexit momentarily. No. Vexit jumps out ahead of him, and it actually compromises the Alfa Romeo driver, who puts on a set of medium tyres.
Same for Vexit, both of them going for mediums to the end here, but Labrax, who pitted on the same lap, went for the hards. So difference in decisions, difference in strategy between these drivers right now. Jan Fehler is behind Vexit, by the way, but he's not going to be behind him for too much longer if he has anything to say about it. Looking to try and dive up the inside. It's desperate from Jan, and he can't make the move stick. Vexit holding on to what is effectively P2, depending on how well Peso can make his tyres last. But Jan Fehler, after pitting earlier, loses out to Vexit in the Red Bull. That is a disaster for the McLaren driver, because he's going to be on hard tyres to the end. Vexit can run away on these mediums.
The undercut has not worked from Jan Fehler. I said at the start of the race, I think Jan Fehler will take this. I said I think he's got the experience, the maturity. Well, it seems that the hunger and the risk from Vexit and Christian Sendel to stay out, to have faith in their own strategy, has it paid dividends. Christian Sendel diving into the pits. Don't pick up a penalty. Nice and clean does it. Christian Sendel into the pits from the lead of the race. Lars Algero will follow. Connor Eddy stays out and will claim the lead of the race and will lead his first ever lap in Formula X race.
Indeed. It takes nerves of steel to do what Christian Sendel did. In a four-way battle for the race win, to be the last one of those 4 drivers to pit when you are the lead driver is very, very brave indeed. But it's worked out a treat for Christian Sendel, coming out comfortably ahead of Vexit there, who's just cleared KX Ricardo to move up into 10th. 2.6 seconds between Vexit and Christian Sendel. Not only that, Christian Sendel is only about 4 seconds behind Peso. So even if Peso can make those tyres last, I think Christian's going to get him.
But don't forget right now, it's Peso who is your effective race leader in P7. 9-lap-old hard tyres, and he's right on the rear end of Maranello. Maranello seemingly starting to struggle on his set of medium tyres. Now, we've seen a few drivers opting for the medium tyres for their second stint, Christian Sendel and Vexit. So let's see if Maranello wants to take his mediums to around about lap 18, lap 19, and then pit for a set of softs to the end of the race.
I think these medium tyre runners are all going to go for the softs. I would have to imagine that is their call. Maranello with a bit of a moment there down towards turn 13, getting Peso closer in the rear mirrors, but not close enough to think about making a move. Here comes Jan Fehler trying to get past KX Ricardo. Manages to do so in the braking zone there. That is important because Vexit is starting to drive away further up. Sandro wasn't able to quite capitalize as Riptide and Connor Eddy both heading into the pits. 2 of the drivers remaining on soft tyres. Ice Looper, the last remaining soft tyre runner, also into the pits. Here's Vallu driving clean around the outside of Sandro, and Jeffrey Ritchie follows suit. So rough final corner there for the Belgian, who loses 3 positions in the final sector of that lap.
And Sandro just had a moment going down into turn 15. He ended up locking up, he ran wide, and that's what allowed Vallu to get alongside. Whether Vallu left space through 16 is one for the stewards to determine after the race. But Peso is your effective race leader. He's 1.5 seconds clear of Christian Sendel, but Christian's on medium tyres and Peso is on worn hard tyres. I mean, on paper, is Christian Sendel and Vexit will be able to get past him 99 times out of 100, as KX Ricardo has a moment. Vallu will sweep past, and Jeffrey Ritchie will follow through.
Yeah, Ricardo on 10-lap-old hard tyres, falling prey to the much fresher tyres of the Red Bull and the Alfa Romeo. But look at Jeffrey Ritchie up there with Vallu. He pitted a little bit earlier to get onto those medium tyres. You mentioned he wanted to get out of the traffic that was Lars Algera, Labrax, Connor Eddy, that lot. He's comfortably clear of those guys right now, as Christian Sendel also just got past Maranello in his attempt to chase down Peso. It's only 1.2 seconds now between those two, and there's a huge tyre differential. So Peso needs to get in the DRS of Cameron Cooper if he's to have any hope of keeping the German behind. But Lars Algera in particular has lost out big time in this pit stop. He just lost a position to Riptide. He pitted later than most drivers, got undercut by many of them, and yet he's still gone onto a set of hard tyres. So I think that is a poor decision from Lars Algera, who is losing many positions right now. Jeffrey Ritchie, meanwhile, getting past Vallu for 9th. So one Alfa Romeo waning, the other waxing incredibly here. Jeffrey Ritchie on a roll.
Great stuff from the Shizou Academy driver, Ace Ritchie, up to P9. But don't forget, these guys were on the medium tyres. I'm expecting after about, I want to say 13 laps, 12 laps, that's when the hard tyres will start to become that little bit quicker. And from that point onwards, they're going to be the ones on the defensive. And the likes of Vallu, Jan Fehler will then start to claw their way back up the order. Sandro picks up his first time penalty of the race.
Yeah, and he got passed by Connor Eddy a few corners ago as well, falling still further down the order. Him and KX Ricardo are in for a world of hurt in these next few laps here with their old hard tyres. They're going to struggle to keep anyone behind them at this stage. Here's Christian Sendel, and he's not wanting to be behind Peso, and it's around the outside, and it is a clean overtake. Peso with no reply there. Christian Sendel not leaving that race win in Peso's hands. He takes it back for himself.
That was the equivalent of Peso saying, okay, I'm going to defend this position. And Christian said, you what, mate? Good luck. And he just sweeps around the outside as if Peso's not even there. That was incredible from Christian. The amount of pace and grip he had round the outside on those medium tyres was incredible. And Christian Sendel moves up to P4 and the effective race lead, now jumping ahead of Cameron Cooper as well on the run into turn 3.
Yeah, Peso had DRS as well on Cameron Cooper's car, and it wasn't enough to keep Christian Sendel behind for more than about half a lap or so. Christian Sendel on a tear here, and he is looking very, very hot right now for the first race win of the season. Vexit trying to chase him down through the traffic. He's getting a little bit closer maybe in the last few laps, but he's still got Peso and Cameron Cooper to clear, and he might not have quite such an easy time as Christian Sendel did.
So Peso, next driver he has to defend is Jan Fehler, who is about 5 seconds down the road. So things are looking good for Peso in that regard, but don't forget Jan Fehler on these hard tyres, whereas Christian Sendel on the mediums. And we'll have to see how this entire tyre strategy pans out as Peso closing in on Cameron Cooper and will be wanting to find a way through quicker rather than later.
Looking 9th and 8th, Jan Fehler has Jeffrey Ritchie all over his gearbox right now. 0.4 of a second, 0.5 of a second between the two of them. Jan Fehler not close enough to Maranello to expect DRS anytime soon. 3-lap older tyres, 1 stage harder tyres than the Alfa Romeo behind. The Dutchman, Jeffrey Ritchie, might well be looking at a podium if he keeps this sort of form up. Peso, depending on if he can make his tyres last or not, might be falling prey to Jeffrey Ritchie before the end of this race. And right now it is Jan Fehler who's in the firing line. Further up, that's Peso and Cameron Cooper battling side by side. Peso trying to get past and manages to do so around the outside of 4. That is a lovely move there from the Williams. Vexit getting close to them as well. Meanwhile, further back, Ritchie was able to get past Jan Fehler, but here comes Vexit trying to get around the outside of Cameron Cooper, who's struggling now on his 15-lap-old medium tyres. And he loses out to both Peso and Vexit in the matter of a few corners. Labrax picking up another 3-second time penalty down in 15th.
Cameron Cooper defending too hard against Peso, and it compromises him, allowing Vexit to find a way through. Either way, Cameron Cooper is not really battling with these two drivers. He needs to stick to his own strategy. And, well, he doesn't do that, and he picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. Good stuff from Jeffrey Ritchie to find a way through on Jan Fehler. Now he's within that DRS range of Maranello and can soon find a way up into P7.
Yeah, he might not have quite had the pace of the Red Bulls and the McLarens, but he's had the strategy over and above a couple of them at the very least. Christian Sendel, meanwhile, is dispatching Ollie P for second place as he has just driven away from Peso and Vexit behind. He is really looking solid right now. And his teammate Jan Fehler not looking so hot with the strategy call in particular. Really struggling in this race compared to what we would expect from the German. Vallu still close behind him as well. So the battle between those two is not done yet, but Vallu does have that 3-second time penalty. Here comes Jeffrey Ritchie on Marinkello, who is yet to pit, of course, and as a result is easy meat for the Alfa Romeo, who goes straight up the inside of Marinkello and past into 7th.
I'm just starting to think, Jacob, Christian Sendel and Vexit, do they have to pit? Because honestly, I think even if Christian Sendel pits onto soft tyres in about 5 laps, he still finishes on the podium as here comes Vexit down the inside of Peso, down into Clark chicane. Peso's going to hold it round the outside and holds on to the P4 spot, but here comes a Vexit round the outside of the sweeping left-hander on the runner down into turn 11 and 12, but Vexit has to slot in behind once again.
That's wise. You do not want to be trying to go side by side through turn 11. That is an airplane crash waiting to happen. But right now, he might have a look into 13. Tries to go around the outside, but Peso's more wise to that than he was before, showing the door on the exit of that corner there. Meanwhile, further back, Vallu and Jan Fehler have both been able to get past Marinkello, the Italian struggling in that Haas right now. But Vexit has been able to dispatch Peso finally into turn 15, it looks like. And meanwhile, Christian Sendel taking the lead over and above Jay Hamo, who's still out there on medium tyres, which he started the race on as well.
Good stuff from Christian Sendel, now up into the lead of the race. He's about 5 seconds clear of Vexit. About 10 seconds ahead of Jan Fehler. Pit stop here at Australia, about 24 seconds. So if he pitted now, he'd come out 14 seconds behind Jan Fehler with about 11 laps to go. Peso picks up a time penalty. We just saw him running a tiny bit wide on the exit of turn 4. And, well, that will compromise him without a doubt. He was running so well without a time penalty. Would have seen him actually being pretty much guaranteed for what looked to be a P3 spot at the moment.
Yeah, it's between him and Jeffrey Ritchie for that one, but right now it's advantage Jeffrey Ritchie as a result of that time penalty. Jeffrey clean as a whistle thus far this race, yet to pick up a time penalty of his own. He's got better tyres, he's got softer tyres than Peso as well, and only Cameron Cooper between them right now.
Lars Algera has had a spin through turn, I want to say that's turn 9 if I'm not mistaken. I think there was contact between him and Labrax.
It might well have been there, and as a result, Lars Algera, his race going from bad to worse. After a really promising opening stint, Lars has fallen away here since the pit stops. The Canadian making the wrong call to go on the hards and falling all the way down into 16th. Here's Jay Hamo finally into the pits after leading the race for quite a while. We'll see where he comes out relative to the rest of the field on his soft tyres. Marinkello also into the pits as well, but there was a big gap between those two. Here is Jeffrey Ritchie now, who has managed to get past Cameron Cooper, and as a result has a clear run at Peso up ahead, who is his next target.
Oh, here comes Vallu down the inside of Jan Fehler. This is a battle for position, and Vallu up to a P7. He pulls off the move, and Jan Fehler is really struggling on those hard tyres.
Yeah, Jan really making the wrong strategy call here. Connor Eddy is the next one, and he's on much better tyres as well. It should be an easy move for him. I think Ollie P's had an issue out towards the front somewhere, or no, he's just lost out to Vexit. There's yellow flags out there for someone, and I think it might be Sandro Van Sand, who is still having a nightmare race here in the first race of Premier X Division 3. Maybe he is still having those monitor issues that you mentioned, and as a result, struggling to find any sort of semblance of pace here at Australia.
I think Riptide's closing in onto KX Ricardo. They're making their way down into turn 11 and 12, just a couple of tenths separating the two of them. Riptide is on 6-lap-old medium tyres in comparison to the Hong Kong drivers' 16-lap-old hards.
Meanwhile, though, out at the very front, it is Christian Sendel building a 5.8 second gap between himself and Vexit right now. And this is a statement performance from Christian Sendel here in Australia. Ollie P and Cameron Cooper are going to be the last two drivers to change tyres in this race. Now, everyone has used multiple different sets of tyres as they'll be filtering out behind Jay Hamo down in 12th and 13th, maybe behind Lars Algera as well. Jay Hamo's in a good spot, though, with his fresh soft tyres, only 2 seconds behind Labrax in 11th right now. He should at least look to get past Riptide, Ricardo, and Labrax maybe even try and challenge the likes of Jan Fehler before this race is done.
And I have a feeling right now, Jacob, that Jan Fehler has wing damage. He's dropping so much from Vallu and Connor Eddy, and we really didn't expect the Shizou Academy driver of Connor to be right on the back of Jan Fehler like this. Yes, he's on the medium tires and Jan Fehler's on the hards, but I have a sneaky suspicion that there's a bit of damage on Jan Fehler's McLaren, and he's just trying to bring the stricken car home.
If there is damage, it's not very much. I'm not sure where he
No.
would have made contact with another driver as well. I haven't seen him get in any issues thus far this race. Of course, he had to pass a few back markers who are yet to pit, so that might have been part of the issue. But at the moment, if it is from wing damage, it's not going to be so much that it would explain the pace loss, other than just the hard tires as well. He is on the third worst tires in the field, behind Ricciardo and Peso right now. And that in itself is enough to make him struggle, you'd have to imagine. Thankfully for him, the saving grace is he has DRS on Vallu, so Connor Eddy is having a tough time getting past him right now. And every lap that Connor Eddy doesn't get past Jan Fehler, the differential between their tyres closes in as those mediums will start to wear out.
Meanwhile, further down the order, Jay Hammer on fresh soft tyres has just found a way through on Labrax up to P10. Next up is KX Ricciardo. And to be honest, you can see a world where Jay Hammer, at the very least, picks up P8. Maybe, without penalties, he could even be finding himself in the top 5 come the end of the race. So Jay Hammer is on an absolute run right now.
Yeah, we were disappointed to see him going out in Q2 in qualifying, but maybe he wasn't quite so disappointed as we were, as he's making this contra strategy work really, really well right now. And just showing his nose there to KX Ricciardo, who should be a very easy pass here. 18-lap-old hards versus 2-lap-old softs, and the white and navy Alpha Tauri makes its way past the pink racing point. Jay Hammer up into 9th. And now looking to chase down Riptide in that scarlet red Ferrari up ahead. 1.3 seconds is all the gap between those two. And Hamo should be getting there in just half a lap's time or so.
And I just want to see when Jay Hamo comes across the line, what kind of a lap time he's putting out, and then compare it to the likes of Jan Fehler and Vallu on the hard tyres, because that'll give us an indication on whether the Alpha Tauri can close in to that P5 spot. So here comes a Jay Hamo. It will be in the 20s, probably a I'm going to guess a 23. Let's see, 23.3. So decent lap from Jay Hammer, and he lost time. Don't forget, he was battling with Labrax and Ricciardo. So to be honest, he wants the likes of Jan Fehler and Vallu to be putting in 25s or so right now.
Yeah, and you could see that was about 1.3 seconds off his best lap time of the race, which was the previous lap in which he set the fastest lap of the race overall, Jay Hammer. So definitely with a lot of pace right now. Vallu with a second 3-second time penalty. That is got to be good news for Jay Hammer, who might be able to steal a position away from the Finn come the end of this race right now. It's still Christian Sendel leading from Vexit and then Peso. Jeffrey Ritchie getting very, very close behind Peso. Sandro sets the fastest lap of the race after pitting for a fresh set of soft tyres, but he is well off the back of the field right now. And Connor Eddy picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. He didn't need to do that in his battle with Jan Fehler. That's going to be a bit of a shame there for the British driver, who probably will not be able to capitalize on the hard tyres of the McLaren quite so well now.
And here comes Jay Hammer on Riptide. He's closing in at such a fast rate round the outside. Jay Hammer on these soft tyres. I think he's probably going to be picking up fast lap of the race, unless, you know, the likes of Marin Keller or Sandro, they pit again for some fresh softs just to try to steal it away. Remember, you pick up the fast lap point no matter where you are on circuit. But at the moment, Jay Hammer seems to be a pretty safe bet for that bonus point.
Yeah, Marin Keller just
Jeffrey Ritchie's on Peso right now, and they are battling down into turn 3, side by side. Peso's got the inside into 4, but the Alfa Romeo around the outside. Fantastic battling between the pair of them.
Very, very well done indeed by Jeffrey Ritchie. That's another audacious move that's been pulled off against Peso. But with those old, ailing hard tyres, he can't do much to battle back. Vallu with another 3-second time penalty. He's up to 9 seconds now. That's 2 3-second time penalties in 1.5 laps for him. And he's definitely going to lose out to Jan Fehler. He's likely going to use out to Connor Eddy and to Jay Hamo as well. And he might be looking down the barrel at an 8th place finish in this race.
Bad start to the season for Vallu. It was all looking decent in qualifying. It all looked great in Season 2, but here in Season 3, not the start the finish a driver would have wanted. But Jay Hamo having a drive that he definitely would have wanted. But I tell you what, if I had told you at the start of the race that coming across the line we'd have 4 different constructors in the top 4. Would you have believed me, Jacob?
No, it seems very, very unlikely when we saw the McLarens and the Red Bulls in qualifying. I would have thought maybe Peso could mix it up there with them. I would not have had Jeffrey Ritchie looking at a podium, that much is for sure. I don't think anyone predicted that one. But right now, the Dutch driver is looking to do himself proud here in his first race in Premier X. Sitting in third at the moment. Here's Conor Eddy looking at the rear end of Jan Fehler. Bit of a dive bomb attempted there by the Mercedes, trying to scare Jan Fehler off the road more than anything. But the German, the veteran, will not be flapped and holds on to 6th for now. Conor Eddy does need to get past Jan Fehler because he has that 3-second time penalty and Jan does not.
Let's just look slightly further down the order because Ollie's closing in on it to Ricardo. They're at the start of, or about to start Sector 2. And remember, fresh softs are for Ollie. And keeping an eye as well on the gap between Jay Hamo and Conor Eddy. Currently 7 seconds between the pair of them. But these soft tyres are slowly going to get worse and worse. Ollie looks for the inside, but has to switch to the outside on the run down into Clark's chicane.
It's not often you nearly hit the rear end of the car ahead through turn 8, which is a flat-out corner. But Ollie, with a huge difference in traction there to those 21-lap-old hards on the Racing Point, means that he manages to get up into 11th. He's trying to recreate the heroics of his teammate, but he's not really on the same level as Jay Hamo in this race. They ran the same strategy, and both of them having a decent time of it, but Jay Hamo really is one of the stars of this race at the moment, even if he was a bit disappointing in qualifying. 9 seconds at the very front right now between Christian Sendel and Vexit. And I wasn't expecting that after qualifying as well. I thought Christian Sendel had the race win in the bag, or, well, I thought he'd probably win it, but I did not think he was going to win by a margin of 9+ seconds. The race isn't over yet. He could still make some mistakes, but right now he is looking absolutely imperious in P1.
After the entire pit stop shenanigans, Christian Sendel able to get over that 1 second gap, and then since that point, he has just absolutely had phenomenal race pace. Now, Jay Hamo 6.2 seconds behind Conor Eddy. There's 5 laps remaining, and he's gaining by around about a second a lap. I don't think that's going to be enough. It will be enough to get within 3 seconds of Conor Eddy. Will be enough to get within 9 seconds of Vallu. So Jay Hamo, I think, is on for a P6, but we'll see whether he can potentially get within the 3-second range of Peso in P4 as well.
We will see Jan Fehler struggling a little bit there through turn 12. Maybe those hard tyres starting to cry enough towards the end of this race. He did pit earlier than anyone else onto that set of tyres, so he will be struggling for grip at this stage right now. Conor Eddy also going to be struggling a bit, though, because his medium tyres are now 12 laps old. But he pitted very late on, so he still has a good shout of maintaining his tyre advantage over Jan Fehler all the way to the end. Trouble is that 3-second time penalty means he needs to get past, and at the moment he just can't do so. Speaking of getting past, Cameron Cooper should be getting past Ricardo down into turn 1 or turn 3 if he can't manage it then. Maybe heading into the final corner there. He had to back out of that one a little bit soon because Ricardo had a big moment on the apex, but now this should be easy pickings for the Mercedes on those soft tyres, getting past the Racing Point. Not actually doing it into turn 1 though, waiting for turn 3, but surely it is only a matter of... Wait. Where's he gone? Oh no, he was there. He was just so in his wheel tracks, I thought he disappeared and went off-road. But there he is, the Mercedes going around the outside, pulls off the magic trick, and moves up into 12.
Yeah, Ricardo will be the next one, or Lars Algero will be the next one to try to find a way through on Ricardo. 10 laps at fresher hard tyres, and I think we're at the point now, Jacob, where these hard tyres are reaching the crossover point and are slightly quicker than the mediums, and this is why Conor Eddy is almost starting to fall back from Jan Fehler. Jay Hamo 5 seconds behind Conor now. But those soft tyres are starting actually to reach their limits. Usually the soft tyres can only do about 8 laps or so, 8-9 laps. And towards the end of the race, that will probably increase to about 9-10 laps. So Jay Hamo needs to start keeping his tyres in check, but he's only 4.8 seconds behind this group of cars. But even if he can close in, will he have the pace to be able to find a way through Conor Eddy and, crucially, Jan Fehler?
Yeah, indeed. It's looking more and more like he's not going to be able to get Jan Fehler. At the rate he's closing in, I don't think it's going to be enough. But as long as he can get within 3 seconds of Conor Eddy, that's all he needs, because he'll easily be within 9 seconds of Vallu as well. He'll inherit positions from both of those drivers. Jeffrey Ritchie, ever since he got past Peso, has not driven away from the Czech driver at all. So those medium tyres starting to struggle at this point in the race, and it's driving a bit of a train now, the Alfa Romeo. We see Peso, Vallu, Jan Fehler. What a series of drivers to have behind you. Conor Eddy there as well. And Jeffrey Ritchie with a lot of pressure on his shoulders to try and get his first podium here in Premier X. But right now, he's standing up to the onslaught pretty well.
Labrax picks up a time penalty. Lars Algero just able to find a way through on Ricardo. Slightly early in the lap, keeping an eye still on Jay Hamo, 4.3 seconds behind. When we start the next lap, there will be 2 laps remaining. And Jay Hamo's target is just to get within that penalty range of the likes of Eddie and maybe even Pesso as well. But I think the latter will be unlikely unless Pesso really starts battling with Jeffrey Ritchie and Vallu.
What we're looking at between these two McLaren drivers right now is the difference between a clean race and a race where you're mired in traffic, where you make the wrong strategy calls. Because there's no way that the difference between those drivers over the course of a race, if they both have a clean race, is 16 seconds. As Vexit picks up a 3-second time penalty, that might get Jeffrey Ritchie's nose up there in third. But there's only 2 laps left to go, and it is 4.2 seconds. The gap has been expanding as well, so Jeffrey might not be able to capitalize on that penalty for Vexit, but it's just going to give him a little bit of a wag of the tail to maybe think about trying to get closer.
Vallu is really close to the back of Pesso right now. I think Ollie's on the back of Labrax as well. That's for P10. And AlphaTauri should be able to take home a good haul of points, all things considered. Jay Hamo, 3.7 seconds behind this group. Now, he should be finishing the race at around about that 2-second mark, but I don't know if that's going to be enough for him. As we mentioned before, it will be a P6 more than likely for the AlphaTauri driver. But I think P5 is slightly out of his reach as Lars Algero picks up another time penalty.
Lars currently sitting down in 13th. There's a 1.2-second gap now down to KX Ricardo, who we passed a few laps ago. But the penalty situation down there's going to be a bit of chopping and changing for the lower end of the rankings once we come across the line. Of course, still points for all of those drivers, so it's worth battling over those positions. Marankello, for instance, getting close to Ricardo. It's worth trying to get past. And Ice Looper is in close attendance as well. So a bit of a battle forming for P14 now.
P14 is getting tight. Marankello right on Ricardo's heels. But let's see what Ice Looper can potentially pull through. For now, just going to have to sit behind. And there we can see the time penalties for everyone. A lot of 9s and a lot of 6s.
Yeah, Marankello sitting pretty to at least gain from Algera and KX Ricardo, who loses out there to Marankello on track anyway. Further up, though, it's still 3.6 seconds between Jay Hamo and Connor Eddy. So I think Connor's going to hold on to that one, actually. I think Jay Hamo's burnt out the best of those tyres, but there goes Ricardo sending it back up the inside of Marankello as we cut on board with Vallu, who's close behind Peso as well at this stage of the race. But Vallu's penalties means that any battling he does isn't really going to be worth very much right now. But meanwhile, Christian Sendel absolutely worlds away at the front. He's entering the final couple of corners now of his first ever race in Premier X, the first race of Premier X Season 3. We knew the McLarens would be strong, but we didn't know that Christian Sendel would be this strong. He wins the race by a margin of 12 seconds down to Vexit. That will become 15 seconds once Vexit's time penalty is factored in as well. Vexit with a solid drive to second, but he'll be disappointed to see himself so far behind Christian Sendel. Here comes Jeffrey Ritchie with a great drive to third and a podium slot. Jan Fehler manages to salvage fourth after a race that really didn't go his way. And Vallu falling all the way down into eighth, will be able to stay ahead of Riptide, but nevertheless, a really poor start to his title defense for the Finn. Ollie P on the contra strategy manages 10th, and Labrax will come home in 11th, just ahead of Cameron Cooper after penalties are factored in.
Marankello will take the P13 ahead of Lars Algero, who has had a miserable race after what was a very impressive qualifying session for the Canadian driver. Ricardo down in P15 ahead of Ice Looper. And, well, Sandro will be scratching his head after this one.
Yeah, he's playing us a song with his gearbox right now, switching up between 6th and 8th, down and up we go. But Sandro, yeah, you got to find fun where you can in a race like this, because this has been a slog and a really tough one for him. Not the way he would have wanted his season to start. Peso had a positive start on the same strategy that Sandro did. Sandro went for a second set of softs, but the race was already going away from him. And I got to assume he hasn't got that monitor situation sorted out, and as a result, he is struggling here in the first race of the season. Hopefully, he can come back stronger next time, but it's a 17th place finish for the Belgian today.
Don't forget as well, you can vote in the chat for your driver of the day. Jeffrey Ritchie, driver of the day, but you know, he's so happy. He's jumping out of the camera shot already. He's ready to get on up on to the podium. A fantastic drive for Jeffrey Ritchie, and to be honest, he might have been my driver of the day if it wasn't for just how dominant Christian Sendel was. So
yeah,
I think for me, it's Christian Sendel or it's Jeffrey Ritchie. Maybe something would go the way of Connor Eddy and Jay Hamo, but I think it's got to be Christian Sendel, right?
Yeah, I think Christian Sendel would be my driver of the day. Jeffrey Ritchie did a great job. We expected him to be a pretty good driver. We didn't expect him to be getting a podium first time out. I thought he might get a couple over the course of the season, but that's a great start to his campaign, this third place, and plenty of points to go along with it. Also, shout out to Jay Hamill on that contra strategy, making it work, getting him back up to where we would expect him to be after a poor qualifying. And Riptide qualified 11th, finished 9th. We did underestimate him in the power rankings, that is for sure. The Swede showing us that we were wrong, and in style as well. Good 9th place finish for him in the Ferrari.
I think he's showing us that we were more than wrong. A fantastic drive from Riptide. I'm really interested to see how the good old fantasy will be doing. I say good old, I think I mean the cool new fantasy will be. There'll be some very interesting results from today's race. But either way, we're going to be heading into a short break. When we're back, we'll be announcing our driver of the day, as well as jumping in for our interviews with our top 3 drivers. If anyone in the chat has some suggestions for questions that they would like asked, serious questions, of course, please drop them in, and we will do our very best to bring those to your drivers. But stay tuned here at FXR for more race content. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we're jumping on in for our post-race reactions after the Season 3 Premier X opener here from Melbourne, Australia. Christian Sendel took the win ahead of Vexit and Ace Ritchie. And we've got Vexit and Ritchie with us. We'll jump to our P2 driver first. Vexit, let's start off with qualifying because that final lap, it looked so quick. What went wrong?
Well, coming into the 11 and 12 chicane, I took a bit too early of an apex, and that sort of both mentally and also physically, like the car was a bit unsettled. And yeah, that sort of caused me to be in a bit of a fluster, invalidate turn 12 and invalidate. So yeah, could have been better, but oh well, it turned out okay in the end. So
You started a little bit further down the order than you would have liked, but you were able to make a quick way up the field until you got behind your teammate of Vallu, and then things started to get more tricky. How much was your teammate holding you up in the early stages of the race?
I wouldn't say he's holding me up, you know. It's like Vallu, you can't exactly say Valu's a slow driver, obviously winning the last championship, but like he was feeling a little bit tired and stressed. I know that he was sort of starting to struggle a little bit. But yeah, he wasn't holding me up too badly. Like it wasn't like it obviously didn't help being in his dirty air, and but like it wasn't anything like major. So like Value's still got amazing pace. You should still make sure you realize that. But yeah, it wasn't it wasn't the nicest thing to just be sat behind someone in dirty air. But yeah, we survived. So yeah.
I did want to ask with regards to strategy, we saw a couple of you guys, most specifically yourself and Christian Sendel, going for the soft medium strategy. Is that something you plan on doing from the start of the race, or was it only made possible due to the early safety car?
Well, I know that soft medium is possible regardless, even without a safety car, but it is a little bit risky. I know that soft hard is quite a safe strategy, and it's usually the more preferred one, but the safety car did open up more of an opportunity and provide a bit less of a risk to do the soft to medium strat. So, yeah, I would say the safety car helped us a little.
Jacob, do you have any questions for Vexit?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, you mentioned making a mistake into 9 and 10 in that final qualifying attempt. It seemed to me like maybe you were having a bit of trouble with that corner throughout qualifying. I noticed you invalidated there in your first attempt as well. Would you say that's sort of the part of the circuit that you have trouble with the most?
Do you mean 11 and 12? Because you said 9 and 10.
No, I mean 9 and 10. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I mean 9 and 10. But
sorry. Yeah, that corner is quite tricky. Like it's a bit slow speed and it can catch you out if you're not careful or if you get on the power slightly too early. It's quite a precise corner, and usually I thought I was like pretty good at it, but it can catch you off guard if you like just disregard it and sort of not really take much care into it. Like if you just don't think about the exit, then you're definitely going to be punished for it.
yeah, fair enough. And congratulations on your P2 here.
Thank you.
Right, we'll move on to our P3 of Jeffrey Ritchie. And Jeffrey, qualifying looked decent, and then in the race, everything just seemed to fall into place.
Well, qualifying decent. I did lose like two tires coming out of.
Oh yeah, wait, I forgot that was you.
I completely binned my quality. So yeah, I was on a good lap, but I actually messed it up before the lap already. I actually managed to get damage on my out lap, but I was still improving on my time. Just coming out of that S corner, I just lost it just trying to push, too hard. Got me into P9. But the race was pretty good. I was actually planning to go hard at first, but my chat engineer Neon, he said softs would probably be the better option, and I went with it, and obviously it helped out a lot. Caught up to some of the hard guys, overtook them, and managed to keep it clean and bring it home in P3.
Jacob, do you have any questions for our P3 man?
Yeah, I mean, so P3 in the first race of the season, is this something you were expecting to be fighting for podiums this early on in the season? And what do you reckon we can expect from you further on into the season as well?
Um, I wasn't really expecting. I was more, I see the grid now. It's pretty competitive. It's really, it's pretty sweaty. So, but I'm, yeah, pretty confident. Future races, I think podiums are definitely possible. I think if I just keep it clean, keep concentrated, could definitely pull some more podiums out the box, especially if I don't, burger my quality.
Indeed. Well, fair enough. And yeah, a great race from you. So well done. And you're also the joint driver of the day holder at the moment alongside Christian Sendel, according to the poll. So congratulations on that as well.
Yes, nice.
Right, we'll move on then. Now, while Christian Sendel can't join us, we do have the other McLaren, and the McLaren that I, at the start of the race, expected to be on the top spot of Jan Fehler. Jan, it was a very close qualifying between, I think, yourself, Christian, and Vallu. But in the race, you seem to be just struggling a little bit for pace. Was it a case of perhaps you had some damage on the car, or were you just struggling on the hard tires?
I was just stupid to put the hard tires on. That was absolutely the wrong strategy call. I just didn't think enough after that safety car, and then yeah, that was just stupid because obviously we had the restart of the lobby. Also didn't consider that because obviously then we had fresh softs at the start of the race, so they are longer quick. So undercutting at lap 7, which my initial plan was, would have worked on old tires without the safety car. Then we had the safety car, and I thought, oh, well, that doesn't do too much. I guess it can still work if I use all the ERS. But no, we had fresh tires, so of course the softs are still quicker than fresh hards. So I actually got overcut by people pitting later and then putting on mediums. So of course they're quicker on mediums that are fresher. And then I just hope to come back at them when their mediums are gone in the end, which I guess was the case actually for can't remember the
Is it
name.
Pessa?
Was it Sauber? Because
Oh,
at the head of the train in the end, like we had that car train from P4 or what it was.
Richie.
Richie, yeah, it's Richie.
So yeah, so we caught up to him. So I guess that would have worked. But then I let Vallu pass when he was behind me because I thought he still has plenty of ERS and then catch up to the guy. Yeah, was it? I forgot the name again. He overtook my mediums pretty early on, and I wanted to catch up to him again. So I let Vallu pass because I thought he has plenty of ERS. He's got a time penalty anyway, so just stick with him. He's going to go past, and it's all fine. But then he just kept collecting penalties and apparently was not interested in any race position there. But then I was stuck in the train behind him because he had someone in front of him, and then had DRS, and then you can't overtake. So it was just all messed up, and all because of my stupid decision to pit for hards on lap 7. That just completely ruined my race.
It sounds like an unfortunate race with just a lot of unlucky minor things just stacking on top of each other. Jacob, I'll throw it to you if you have any questions for Jan.
Yeah, first of all, it's really interesting. Actually, it's something I didn't consider the difference that the lobby restart would make with your strategy, and maybe pitting a lap too early then because of the freshness of those soft tires. Towards the end of the race as well, you were managing to hold off Connor Eddy. Was that something you were ever worried about, Connor Eddy trying to get past you, or did you think the mediums had by that point kind of passed their best?
By the end of the race, there was no problem at all. I was a bit worried once Vallu got past, because obviously then he was right behind me, thinking, well, Vallu just got past on that dude. I'm on medium, so I'll just pass him as well as he's on hards. But I managed to fend that off quite nicely, I think, and with the help of that DRS. And then once the first 1 or 2 attacks were defended, there was not really a big worry because, I was just confident to defend the inside line everywhere, and then he just wouldn't have a chance to make a move.
Fair enough. And then also just thinking then about the remainder of the season, still plenty of races left to go. And a P4 in that race, not as bad as it could have been for sure. So still very decent points. What are we expecting from you for the remainder of this season, in your opinion?
I don't know what you're expecting from me. You have to tell
Well,
me.
what should we be expecting from you as well, I'll say?
Better results than today for sure. A couple of wins. The goal is definitely to win the championship, of course. That's why we're all here.
Mhm.
I think today showed that at the front is quite close, especially in qualifying.
Mhm.
Pretty much I bet everyone from the top 4 will or could go in the chat and say, oh well, I bottled quali, blah blah, I went so much quicker usually, blah blah. So it's the same for everyone. But yeah, it's just as close as it was today, and it could be more interesting at tracks where you can actually overtake. Australia is not the perfect track for that, so maybe we have a bit more better racing at the other tracks, and then it's just completely open who wins that. So podium should be expected, I guess, and then if the races go well, it wins.
Indeed, yeah. If we can get more qualies like we had today, I'm definitely signing up right here and now for that. But thank you for the interview, and congratulations at least on your 4th place finish.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks again to Vexit, Jeffrey Ritchie, and Jan Fehler for joining us for some interviews. And Jacob, I do believe that's all that we have time for, as I think my teeth have gone like purple on camera.
You've got some very impressive lipstick on recently, actually, with the camera, so that's very nice. It's very
Okay,
dashing,
well,
actually. It suits you well. The fresh cut and the lipstick, it's grand, really.
You know, as soon as we threw to break, I was quickly lipstick out. Yeah, get the nice pink gloss coming through. Here we are. Me, my lipstick, and my love of inside tires locking up into corners. I'm a weird guy. What can I say?
Apparently so.
Next race is Brazil. Jan Fehler was saying that we might be seeing some more interesting races at tracks where we can see more battling, and I know Brazil tends to be a track that a lot of drivers like for battling, for driving. So we'll see what comes through. But that is all that we have at time for today. If you haven't already, make sure to drop a follow on the Twitch stream so that you can stay up to date whenever we go live, whether it is for our Division 1 races on Thursday or our Premier X races on Friday. And if you're interested in the Division 2 races, there are community streams for that. I believe Sandro van Sand, the Williams driver from today, does stream those, along with a few good old jokes. It's pretty good fun to watch, at least better than his driving today anyway. I'm sorry, I just rip into Sandro every chance I get. But no, thank you guys everyone for joining. Congrats again to Christian Sendel for claiming the first victory of the season. From myself and from Jacob, we bid you a good night, and we'll see you in 1 week for the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever try.